The explosion ripped through the cabin at exactly 8:47 p.m., transforming a routine flight into a nightmare. Ryan Cooper had 3 seconds to decide, run for his life or dive into the flames to save a stranger pinned beneath burning debris. He chose the fire. What he didn't know was that the young woman gasping for air would turn out to be Alexandra Steele, the enigmatic CEO of a tech empire worth billions. This is their story, one that began in terror and ended in transformation. Stay with me until the end and let me know in the comments what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Ryan Cooper pressed his forehead against the cold airplane window, watching Denver's lights flicker through the storm clouds below. His reflection stared back, tired eyes, stubbled jaw, the face of a man who'd been fighting uphill for too long. The job interview in Seattle hadn't gone well. Another rejection to add to his collection. Another explanation he'd have to craft for Emma when he got home. Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our descent into Denver International Airport, the captain's voice crackled through the speakers. We're experiencing some turbulence due to the storm system. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Ryan tightened his belt and closed his eyes. Emma would be asleep by now, curled up on Mrs. Patterson's couch with her stuffed elephant. 7 years old and already too perceptive, she'd see right through his forced optimism tomorrow morning. Kids always knew when their parents were drowning. The plane lurched violently, dropping what felt like 50 feet in an instant. Passengers gasped. Someone's coffee cup clattered down the aisle. Ryan gripped his armrests, knuckles white. He'd flown dozens of times for work back when he had a real job, before the company downsized and left him scrambling for whatever he could find. Turbulence was normal. This felt different. Jesus Christ, muttered the businessman beside him, fumbling for his phone despite the flight attendant's glare. 3 rows ahead, a young woman in a navy blazer remained remarkably calm, her fingers flying across a laptop keyboard as if the plane wasn't bucking like a mechanical bull. Dark hair pulled into a perfect bun, posture straight despite the chaos. She looked like she belonged in a boardroom, not a regional commuter flight. Something about her focus, her complete absorption in her work despite the circumstances, made Ryan wonder what could possibly be that important. The smell hit him first, not the usual stale airplane air or reheated meals. This was acrid, chemical, smoke, real smoke. "Do you smell that?" he asked the businessman, but the man was too busy praying under his breath to respond. Ryan twisted in his seat, scanning the cabin. The flight attendants were still strapped in their jump seats, but their faces had changed. The practice calm was cracking. One of them was speaking rapidly into a handset, her eyes wide. Then he saw it. A thin wisp of black smoke curling from the back of the plane, near the galley. "Fire!" someone screamed. "There's fire!" The word rippled through the cabin like a stone dropped in still water. Heads turned. People stood despite the turbulence. The smoke thickened, pouring now from the rear section in billowing clouds. The plane banked hard to the left. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling, dangling like yellow jellyfish. The recorded safety message began playing, absurdly calm. "Please remain seated and place the mask over your nose and mouth." Ryan yanked his mask down, took a deep breath of rubber-tainted oxygen, and made a decision that would change everything. He unbuckled his seatbelt. "What are you doing?" The businessman grabbed his arm. "Sit down. We're still in the air." But Ryan was already moving, pushing against the tide of passengers scrambling toward the front. The smoke was thicker here, acrid and choking even through the oxygen mask. Orange light flickered from the back, actual flames now, licking at the ceiling panels. That's when he saw her. The woman with the laptop was trapped. A food cart had broken free during the turbulence, pinning her against the window seat. Her seatbelt was jammed, the buckle twisted beneath the cart's weight. She was pulling at it desperately, her composed demeanor finally cracking as smoke filled her row. "Help!" she gasped, her voice barely audible over the screaming and the roar of wind through some breach in the fuselage. "Please, someone—" Most people would have kept moving. The human brain in crisis mode doesn't process heroics. It processes survival. Run, escape, save yourself. But Ryan saw his daughter's face in his mind, heard Emma's voice asking why people didn't help each other when it mattered most. He dove into the smoke. The heat hit him like a physical wall. The synthetic carpet was melting, filling the air with toxic fumes that burned even through the oxygen mask. Ryan dropped to his knees, crawling beneath the worst of the smoke, and reached the woman's row. "I'm going to get you out," he said, surprised by how calm his voice sounded. Her eyes, green, bright with tears and terror, locked onto his. "The belt won't... I can't." "Stop pulling." Ryan examined the mechanism. The cart had bent the metal, jamming the release. He needed leverage. "What's your name?" "What?" She stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "Your name. I'm Ryan. We're going to get through this, but I need you to focus on me, not the fire." "What's your name?" Alexandra." "Okay, Alexandra, when I lift this cart, you pull the belt sideways, not up. Sideways. Got it?" She nodded, coughing as smoke thickened around them. The heat was increasing. Ryan could hear the flames crackling, consuming the galley, moving forward row by row. They had maybe 30 seconds before this section became unsurvivable. He gripped the cart, metal hot enough to burn through his shirt, and lifted. Every muscle in his back screamed. The cart budged an inch, maybe two. "Now!" he shouted. Alexandra yanked sideways. Nothing. The buckle remained jammed. The plane shuddered, dropping altitude fast. The pilot was trying to get them down, but they were still thousands of feet up. Through the window, Ryan could see the lights of Denver spinning wildly as the aircraft fought to stay stable. "Again!" He repositioned, ignoring the pain in his hands as hot metal seared his palms. This time he didn't lift, he wrenched, using the plane's tilting motion to add momentum. The cart shifted. Alexandra pulled. The buckle popped free with a metallic snap. "Move! Move!" Ryan grabbed her arm, hauling her over the seats as flames burst through the ceiling panels above where she'd been sitting. The entire rear section was an inferno now. The flight attendant who'd been stationed there was gone, either escaped or... Ryan didn't let himself finish the thought. They stumbled forward, Ryan half carrying Alexandra as she struggled to find her footing in the tilting, smoke-filled tube of metal and fire. Other passengers were pressed against the forward exits, clawing and pushing. Someone had managed to open the emergency door over the wing, and people were jumping out into the darkness, preferring to chance the fall over burning alive. "No!" the remaining flight attendant screamed. "We're still too high! Wait for..." The plane hit something, not the ground. They bounced, skidded, hit again. The lights went out. In the darkness, illuminated only by fire, Ryan felt the aircraft breaking apart. Metal screamed, glass shattered. He pulled Alexandra against him, shielding her as debris flew through the cabin like shrapnel. Then suddenly, they were still. Not silent. People were screaming, fire was roaring, metal was groaning, but the violent motion had stopped. They were on the ground. "The slide," someone yelled. "The front slide deployed." Ryan pushed Alexandra ahead of him toward the exit. The evacuation slide was indeed inflated, people tumbling down it into the rain-soaked tarmac. Denver International Airport's emergency lights bathed everything in harsh white and red. "Jump!" Ryan said, but Alexandra froze at the door's edge, looking down at the slide. Behind them, something exploded. The force knocked them both forward, out the door. They hit the slide hard, tumbling more than sliding, landing in a heap on wet concrete as fire trucks screamed toward them, sirens wailing. Ryan rolled onto his back, rain hitting his face, washing away the soot and smoke. Every part of him hurt. His hands were burned, his lungs felt like he'd swallowed hot coals, but he was alive. They were alive. "Are you okay?" He turned to Alexandra, who was curled on her side, coughing violently. She nodded, unable to speak, and then did something unexpected. She laughed. Not hysterically, but a single short burst of disbelief. "You asked my name," she wheezed. "The plane was on fire and you asked my name." Seemed important at the time. Emergency responders swarmed them, wrapping them in silver thermal blankets, checking for injuries. Ryan lost sight of Alexandra as they were separated, loaded into different ambulances. His last image was of her being lifted onto a gurney, her eyes finding his across the chaos, something unreadable in her expression. The next few hours blurred together. The emergency room at Denver Health was controlled chaos. Burn treatment, oxygen therapy, endless questions from investigators. Ryan learned that Flight 447 had experienced what they were calling a catastrophic mechanical failure in the rear galley area. Of the 73 people on board, 4 were missing, presumed dead. 69 had survived, many with injuries, but survived nonetheless. "You're lucky," the doctor said, wrapping Ryan's hands in white gauze. "Second-degree burns, smoke inhalation, various contusions, but nothing that won't heal. You should have never gone back there. That section of the plane was completely destroyed." "There was someone trapped." "I know. The woman you pulled out, she's been asking about you." Ryan looked up, surprised. "She has?" "Room 314 if you want to visit. Though frankly, Mr. Cooper, what you both need is rest." But Ryan couldn't rest. Not with adrenaline still coursing through his system. Not with the image of flames burned into his retinas every time he closed his eyes. He found himself walking the hospital corridors at 3 a.m., feet carrying him to room 314 before he consciously decided to go there. He knocked softly. "Alexandra? Come in." She was sitting up in bed, staring at her bandaged hands. Someone had brought her fresh clothes, expensive looking even in the hospital lighting. Her hair was down now, falling past her shoulders, and without the corporate armor of her blazer, she looked younger, more vulnerable. "I wanted to thank you," she said without preamble. "What you did, most people wouldn't have." "You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do." She met his eyes. "Do you know the statistics? In an airplane evacuation, the vast majority of people exhibit what's called self-preservation override. They'll trample others to escape. It's not cruelty, it's instinct. But you went backward, into the fire." Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "Anyone would have—" "No." Her voice was firm. "They wouldn't have. They didn't. You were the only one who came back." They sat in silence for a moment. The hospital's ambient sounds, beeping monitors, distant conversations, the hum of fluorescent lights, filling the space. "Why?" she asked finally. "Why risk your life for a stranger?" Ryan thought about lying, giving some heroic answer about duty or human decency. But something about surviving a near-death experience together stripped away the usual social facades. "I have a daughter," he said. "Emma. She's 7. When I saw you trapped, all I could think was, what if it was her? What if she was alone and scared and no one helped? I couldn't live with myself if I walked away." Alexandra's expression softened. "Tell me about her." So he did. In that sterile hospital room, while Denver slept outside, Ryan talked about Emma. Her obsession with dinosaurs, her inability to go to sleep without checking 3 times that her stuffed elephant was properly tucked in. The way she insisted on making breakfast for him every Sunday, usually burned toast and orange juice, but served with such pride that it tasted perfect. He talked about his wife, Sarah, who died in childbirth, leaving him to figure out parenthood alone. About losing his job, the mounting bills, the constant weight of not being enough. "That's why you were on the plane," Alexandra said. It wasn't a question. "Job interview. In Seattle, didn't get it." "Their loss," Ryan laughed bitterly. "Yeah, well, that's what everyone says. Doesn't help with rent." Alexandra was quiet for a long moment, then, "I need to tell you something. Okay? My full name is Alexandra Steele." Ryan shrugged. The name meant nothing to him. She seemed surprised by his lack of recognition. "I'm the CEO of Nexus Technologies." Now that did ring a bell. Nexus was huge. One of those Silicon Valley success stories that made headlines. Cloud computing, artificial intelligence, contracts with half the Fortune 500. And this woman, who couldn't be older than 35, ran it all? "You're that Alexandra Steele? The one who built the company in her garage?" "My parents' garage, but yes." She smiled slightly. "The board wanted me to fly private to Denver, said commercial flights were an unnecessary risk for someone in my position. I insisted on flying commercial because I thought it kept me grounded, connected to reality." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Ironic, isn't it? The one time I try to be normal, I almost die." "But you didn't. Because of you." She shifted, wincing at some pain. "Ryan, I need you to understand something. I've built my entire life on the principle of self-sufficiency. Never owe anyone anything. Never be vulnerable. Never depend on others. In 34 years, no one has ever risked anything significant for me. People are nice to me because I'm rich, because I have power, because they want something. But you didn't know who I was. You just saw a person who needed help. Anyone would have stopped saying that. Her voice was sharp now, frustrated. It diminishes what you did. Own it. You saved my life. They stared at each other across the hospital room, two strangers bound now by trauma and survival. What happens now? Ryan asked. Now we heal. We go back to our lives, you to your daughter, me to my company. She paused. Except? I want to offer you a job. Ryan stiffened. I don't need charity. It's not charity. Before the plane went down, I was working on a proposal for a new aviation safety division, using AI and predictive modeling to prevent exactly what happened tonight. I need someone to head it up, someone who understands the human element of crisis, not just the technical side. I'm not qualified for... You're the only one qualified. You've lived it. You understand what happens when systems fail and people have to make impossible choices. The salary is $200,000 to start, full benefits, flexible schedule, so you can be there for Emma. Ryan's head spun. $200,000? That was more than he'd made in the last 3 years combined. This is because you feel guilty or grateful, or this is because I'm a businesswoman who recognizes talent when I see it. Alexandra's CEO persona was emerging now, confident and decisive. I've built a billion-dollar company by trusting my instincts about people. My instincts about you are screaming. I need to think about it. Of course, take all the time you need. She reached for something on the bedside table, a business card. My personal cell is on there. When you're ready, call me. Ryan took the card, expensive stock with minimalist design. Just her name and number, nothing else. No title needed when you were that powerful. He stood to leave, then turned back. Alexandra? In the plane, when I asked your name, why did you answer? Most people would have just screamed at me to hurry. She considered the question. I don't know. Maybe because in that moment, with death so close, it seemed important that someone know who I was. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, just Alex. The person who was scared and needed help. Ryan nodded, understanding more than she probably intended to reveal. He was halfway to the door when she spoke again. Ryan, tomorrow when the media gets hold of this story, things are going to get complicated. They'll want to know about the hero who saved the tech CEO. Your life is about to become very public. I didn't do it for attention. I know. That's what will make it worse. The media loves a reluctant hero, especially one with a tragic backstory. Single dad, recently unemployed, risks everything to save a stranger who turns out to be worth billions. It's Hollywood material. Ryan groaned. He hadn't considered that angle. Emma's face flashed in his mind. How would this affect her? I'll try to keep your name out of it, Alexandra offered. My PR team is very good at controlling narratives. Thank you. But Ryan, the offer stands regardless. This isn't about the media or public perception. This is about me recognizing that you're exactly the kind of person Nexus needs. Ryan left the hospital as dawn broke over Denver, the mountains painted pink and gold in the early light. His phone had died hours ago, which meant Mrs. Patterson was probably frantic. He caught a taxi, giving the driver his address in the suburbs, and watched the city wake up through bleary eyes. The apartment building looked smaller than he remembered, shabbier. 3 floors of beige mediocrity, with a broken security door and graffiti on the mailboxes. This was his life, Emma's life. Paycheck to paycheck, one crisis away from disaster. But he'd survived an actual disaster. Walked through fire and lived. Mrs. Patterson opened her door before he could knock, Emma sleeping in her arms. Ryan, oh my God, the news said a plane crashed at DIA. I've been calling. My phone died. I'm sorry. Is she okay? She's fine, slept through everything. But Ryan, you look terrible. What happened? He gave her the abbreviated version, leaving out the more terrifying details and definitely not mentioning Alexandra Steele. Mrs. Patterson, 68 and motherly to a fault, fussed over his bandaged hands and insisted on making him breakfast. I'll take Emma, he said, lifting his daughter gently. She stirred, mumbling something about dinosaurs, but didn't wake. Back in their apartment, Ryan laid Emma in her bed, making sure her stuffed elephant was properly positioned. He stood there watching her sleep, this small, perfect person who depended on him for everything. The weight of that responsibility had been crushing him slowly for months, maybe years. But now, with Alexandra's business card in his pocket and the memory of flames still fresh, it felt different, not lighter, but purposeful. He'd walked into fire for a stranger. What wouldn't he do for his daughter? Emma's eyes fluttered open. "Daddy?" "Hey, baby, I'm home." "Did you get the job?" Such a simple question. Yesterday, the answer would have broken him a little more. Today? "Something better happened," he said, kissing her forehead. "I'll tell you about it when you wake up properly. Go back to sleep." "Okay. Love you, Daddy." "Love you too, Em." He went to the kitchen, Alexandra's card on the counter, and stared at it as coffee brewed. $200,000. Benefits. A chance to actually make a difference. Prevent what had almost happened last night from happening to others. It was everything he needed, dropped into his lap by the strangest sequence of events imaginable. His phone, finally charged, exploded with notifications. Missed calls from Mrs. Patterson, from his sister in Chicago, from numbers he didn't recognize. Text messages asking if he was okay, if he'd heard about the plane crash. And then, breaking news alerts. Miracle at DIA. All passengers survive fiery emergency landing. Nexus CEO Alexandra Steele, among survivors of Flight 447. Hero pulls tech billionaire from burning plane. His stomach dropped. It had already started. He opened one of the articles, seeing a grainy photo clearly taken from someone's phone. It showed him carrying Alexandra toward the emergency slide, flames visible behind them. His face was obscured by smoke and shadow, but it was unmistakably him to anyone who knew him. The phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Mr. Cooper, this is Jennifer from Channel 9 News. We understand you were the hero who saved Alexandra Steele's life. We'd love to have you on our morning show to—" He hung up. It rang again immediately. Different number. "Mr. Cooper, this is the Denver Post. We're running a feature on the survivors of Flight 447, and we'd particularly like to focus on your heroic—" He hung up again, then turned the phone off entirely. Emma padded into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, why does your hand have bandages?" He knelt down to her level. "I had a little accident, but I'm okay. Hey, how about we play hooky today? No school, just you and me?" "Really?" Her face lit up. "Can we go to the museum, the one with the dinosaurs?" "Absolutely. An ice cream for breakfast?" "Don't push it, kid." She giggled, then grew serious in that way children do when they sense something important. "Daddy, are you really okay?" "I am now." They spent the day at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, Emma dragging him from exhibit to exhibit, rattling off facts about velociraptors and triceratops with the confidence of a tiny professor. Ryan's phone stayed off. The outside world, with its media requests and life-changing job offers, could wait. This, his daughter's laughter echoing through dinosaur halls, this was what he'd fought through fire to protect. But as evening approached and Emma dozed in the car on the way home, reality crept back in. Rent was due in a week. The credit cards were maxed. His unemployment benefits would run out next month. Alexandra Steele's offer wasn't just attractive, it was salvation. That night, after Emma was asleep, he turned his phone back on. 47 missed calls, over 100 texts, and one voicemail from a number he recognized, Alexandra's. "Ryan, it's Alex. The media found out your name. I'm so sorry. We tried to keep it quiet, but someone at the hospital talked. My PR team can help if you need it. Also, I wanted you to know, the job offer isn't just about what happened on the plane. I had my team pull your work history. Your previous employer was idiotic to let you go. You increased their operational efficiency by 30% in 2 years. You have 3 patents in supply chain optimization. You're not just a hero, Ryan. You're exactly what my company needs. Call me when you're ready." Ryan played the message twice, then looked at Emma's school artwork on the refrigerator, a crayon drawing of the two of them holding hands under a rainbow. At the bottom, in her shaky handwriting, "My daddy and me." He made 2 decisions that night. First, he would take the job. Not because Alexandra felt indebted, but because it was the right opportunity at the right time. And second, He would control how their story was told, not for fame or attention, but to protect Emma from the media circus. He dialed Alexandra's number. "Ryan?" She answered on the first ring, despite it being nearly midnight. "I'll take the job, but I have conditions." "Name them." "First, I need 2 weeks before I start. Emma and I need time to adjust, find a better place to live, get her settled. Second, I want to be kept out of the media as much as possible. No interviews, no public appearances, nothing that makes Emma a target. Third, I report directly to you, not some middle manager who resents the attention I'm getting." Done, done, and definitely done. Anything else? "One more thing. This job, it's real, right? Not just guilt or gratitude or whatever, because I need this to be real." There was a pause, then Alexandra's voice, softer than he'd heard it before. "Ryan, in the past 24 hours, I've done a lot of thinking about my life, my company, my priorities. Almost dying has a way of clarifying things. Yes, I'm grateful you saved me, but that's not why I'm offering you this job. I'm offering it because Nexus has become so focused on algorithms and efficiency that we've forgotten the human element. You represent something we've lost, the willingness to do what's right, even when it's dangerous, even when it costs you everything. That's not guilt talking. That's a CEO recognizing that her company needs to remember its soul." Okay then. Welcome to Nexus Technologies, Ryan. We're going to do amazing things together." After they hung up, Ryan stood on his tiny balcony, looking out at Denver's lights spreading toward the mountains. 24 hours ago, he'd been nobody, another unemployed single dad struggling to make ends meet. Now he was the hero who'd saved a billionaire, about to start a job that would change everything for him and Emma. The universe worked in mysterious ways. Sometimes it took walking through fire to find your path forward. Inside, his laptop dinged with an email. From Alexandra, subject line, "Welcome package." He opened it to find not just employment paperwork, but a personal note. "Ryan, I've scheduled movers to help you relocate whenever you're ready. There's a wonderful neighborhood near the office with excellent schools. Emma would love it. I've also taken the liberty of setting up a meeting with my head of security to discuss keeping you and Emma safe from media intrusion. One more thing, my therapist is excellent if you need someone to talk to about what happened. Trauma has a way of surfacing when we least expect it. I'm learning that the hard way. Thank you again. Not just for saving my life, but for reminding me that there are still people in this world who do the right thing simply because it's right. See you in 2 weeks. Alex P.S. Emma's dinosaur drawings, I may have stalked your social media, are fantastic. Nexus is actually sponsoring a paleontology exhibit at the Natural History Museum next month. VIP passes will be waiting for you both. Ryan smiled, the first genuine smile he'd managed since the plane touched down. He thought about responding, but what did you say to something like that? Instead, he closed the laptop and went to check on Emma one more time. She was sleeping peacefully, her elephant clutched tight, completely unaware that their life had just changed dramatically. In the morning, he'd tell her about the new job, the new house, the new beginning. He'd figure out how to explain why reporters kept calling, why their story was suddenly news. But tonight, he just sat on the edge of her bed, watching her breathe, grateful for every small rise and fall of her chest. He'd walked through fire and emerged on the other side, scarred but alive. And now, impossibly, that act of desperate courage had opened doors he'd never imagined. Outside, Denver slept under a clear sky, the same stars that had witnessed disaster now watching over a fragile peace. Somewhere across the city, Alexandra Steele was probably still awake, running her empire even from a hospital bed, planning the future of a company worth billions. And here, in a shabby apartment that would soon be a memory, Ryan Cooper held his daughter's hand and whispered a promise. "It's going to be better now, Em. Everything's going to be better." He didn't know then how prophetic those words would be. He didn't know that in 6 months, the aviation safety division he'd head would prevent 3 potential disasters. He didn't know that Alexandra would become not just his boss, but one of his closest friends, that Emma would call her Aunt Alex, and spend summers at the Nexus campus learning to code. He didn't know that the boy Emma would marry 20 years later would joke at their wedding that his parents-in-law had the best how we met story ever. Though technically, Ryan would correct him, they weren't dating when the plane caught fire. All of that was still to come, hidden in a future that had seemed impossible just one day ago. For now, there was just this: a father and daughter in a small apartment, both sleeping safely while the world spun on, carrying them toward a tomorrow bright with possibility. The hero's journey, Ryan would learn, didn't end with the rescue. That was just the beginning. The real adventure was what came after, building a life worthy of the second chance he'd been given, creating something from the ashes of what had burned. And it would start tomorrow, with dinosaurs and ice cream and difficult conversations about why Daddy's hands were bandaged. It would start with truth and move toward hope. One day at a time, one choice at a time, one small act of courage leading to another. The fire on Flight 447 had nearly killed them all. But for Ryan Cooper and Alexandra Steele, it had also forged something unbreakable, a connection born from chaos, sealed in survival, and destined to reshape both their worlds in ways neither could imagine. The moving truck arrived on a Tuesday morning, 2 weeks after the fire, bringing with it the peculiar sensation of life shifting from one chapter to another. Ryan stood in the empty apartment, Emma's voice echoing from the bathroom where she was saying goodbye to the tiles she'd named after different dinosaur species. The movers worked with quiet efficiency, wrapping their meager belongings with more care than worn furniture and secondhand toys probably deserved. Mr. Cooper, the lead mover, a broad-shouldered man named Marcus, approached with a tablet. Ms. Steele's office wanted me to confirm the delivery address. Ridgemont Circle, correct? Ridgemont Circle. Even the name sounded expensive. Ryan had driven through the neighborhood 3 times since accepting the job, each time feeling more like an imposter. These were houses with circular driveways and security systems worth more than his annual salary had been. Now one of them would be theirs, a 3-bedroom rental that Nexus Technologies was covering for the first year while he got established. That's correct, Ryan said, signing the tablet with his still healing hands. The bandages were off now, but the skin remained pink and tender, a permanent reminder of that night. Emma bounced into the living room, her backpack stuffed with essential items she'd insisted on carrying herself, her elephant, 3 favorite books about paleontology, and a photo of her mother that usually lived on her nightstand. Daddy, are we really going to have a backyard with grass? We really are. Can we get a dog? Let's get settled first, Em. She nodded solemnly, then brightened. Will the lady from the airplane visit us? Ryan had told Emma a simplified version of events, that he'd helped someone during the emergency landing and that person had offered him a job. He'd left out the fire, the fear, the proximity to death. 7-year-olds didn't need those kinds of details haunting their dreams. Maybe, he said, she's very busy. The truth was, Alexandra had texted him nearly every day since he'd accepted the position. Small things mostly, checking on his hands, making sure the movers had arrived on time, sending links to school programs Emma might enjoy. For someone who ran a billion-dollar company, she seemed to have an unusual amount of time for details that should have been handled by assistants. The drive to Ridgemont Circle took them through parts of Denver Ryan had only seen from the highway. The houses grew larger, the cars newer, the lawns more manicured with each passing block. Emma pressed her face against the window, providing commentary on everything from the unusual cloud formations to a golden retriever being walked by someone in designer running gear. That dog looks like it has its own personal trainer, she observed, making Ryan laugh despite his nerves. The house, their house, at least for now, sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac. It was modest by neighborhood standards, but looked like a mansion compared to their apartment. White brick with blue shutters, a 2-car garage, and yes, a backyard with actual grass. A swing set stood in one corner, looking newly installed. Did you ask for that? Ryan asked Marcus as the movers began unloading. No, sir. It was here when we arrived to do the walkthrough this morning. There was a note. He handed Ryan an envelope with his name written in elegant script. Inside, a simple card. Every child deserves a swing set. A. Emma had already discovered it, her delighted squeals echoing across the yard as she tested each swing. Ryan watched her through the kitchen window, his throat tight with an emotion he couldn't quite name. Gratitude felt too small. This was something larger, more complex, a shifting of fortune so dramatic it felt almost dangerous to trust. His phone buzzed. Alexandra. How's the move going? The swing set wasn't necessary, he typed back. Necessary and right aren't always the same thing. Is Emma happy? He looked at his daughter, now attempting to climb the attached slide backward, her laughter bright in the morning air. Extremely. Good. That was the point. Team meeting tomorrow at 9. Don't wear a tie. We're not that kind of company. Ryan spent the rest of the day unpacking, trying to make their few possessions fill the space without emphasizing how little they had. Emma helped enthusiastically, declaring each room's purpose with the authority of a tiny interior designer. The smallest bedroom became her dinosaur research facility. The dining room was designated for fancy eating and homework, and the living room was for movies and for when Aunt Alex visits. She's not your Aunt Em. She could be. She doesn't have any kids, right? Maybe she needs a niece. The simplicity of 7-year-old logic was both charming and slightly concerning. Ryan made a mental note to establish appropriate boundaries before Emma became too attached to the idea of Alexandra as family. That evening, as they ate takeout pizza on the living room floor, the dining table wouldn't arrive until tomorrow, Emma grew quiet. What's on your mind, baby? The kids at my new school won't know me. That's true. But that means you get to decide who you want to be. Fresh start. Can I still be the dinosaur girl? You can be whoever you want. She considered this, chewing thoughtfully. I want to be the dinosaur girl with the dad who saves people. Ryan's chest tightened. Despite his efforts to downplay the incident, Emma had absorbed more than he'd realized. I don't save people, Em. It was just one time, and Mrs. Patterson said you're a hero. She said it to Mrs. Chen when she didn't know I was listening. Mrs. Patterson exaggerates. Emma fixed him with a look that was pure Sarah, piercing and slightly exasperated. Daddy, lying is wrong even when you're being modest. He couldn't argue with that logic. The next morning came too quickly. Ryan stood in front of his closet at 6 a.m., realizing he owned nothing appropriate for a tech company worth billions. His interview suit was too formal, his other clothes too casual. He settled on khakis and a button-down shirt, no tie as instructed, and hoped for the best. Emma was already awake, dressed in her favorite dinosaur dress and making breakfast. Her version, which involved too much peanut butter on toast and a glass of orange juice with a curly straw. Big day, she announced. You need protein for your brain. Thank you, Dr. Cooper. That's Professor Cooper to you? The new school was only 5 minutes away, a sprawling campus that looked more like a small college than an elementary school. Parents dropped off children from cars that cost more than Ryan had made in the previous year. Emma gripped his hand tighter as they walked toward the entrance. You've got this, he whispered. We've got this, she corrected, then marched through the doors with manufactured confidence. Ryan made it to the Nexus Technologies headquarters with 15 minutes to spare. The building was a monument to modern architecture, glass and steel reaching toward the sky, the company logo subtle but unmistakable at the entrance. He sat in his car for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel, remembering the last time he'd felt this out of place. His first day at his previous job, 12 years ago, when Sarah had been alive and the future seemed so certain. You've walked through literal fire, he told his reflection in the rearview mirror. You can handle a conference room. The lobby was bustling with the kind of purposeful energy that successful companies radiate. Young people in expensive casual wear typed on laptops while waiting for elevators. Digital displays showed stock prices, news feeds, and what appeared to be real-time data from Nexus projects around the world. Ryan approached the reception desk, where a young man with perfectly styled hair and an earpiece smiled at him. You must be Mr. Cooper. Ms. Steele asked me to send you directly up. Executive elevator to your left. It's already programmed for the correct floor. The executive elevator was all mirrors and soft lighting. Ryan watched the floors tick by, each one representing a level of success he'd never imagined reaching. The doors opened on the 32nd floor to reveal Alexandra standing there, as if she'd been waiting. She looked different from both the composed professional on the plane and the vulnerable patient in the hospital. This Alexandra was in her element. Designer jeans, a simple black blazer, an aura of quiet power that made the space around her seem to reorganize itself in deference. Ryan. She smiled, and it transformed her face, making her look younger, less intimidating. "How are your hands?" "Healing." He held them up, the pink scars visible but no longer painful. "Good. Come on, the team's waiting." She led him through an open office space that challenged every assumption he'd had about corporate environments. No cubicles, just long tables where people collaborated. Beanbag chairs in corners, a full coffee bar that would rival any Seattle cafe. And windows, floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of the mountains that made you forget you were in an office at all. "This is different," he said. "We try to be. Unhappy people don't innovate. Stressed people don't create. We built this space to feel less like work and more like possibility." The conference room she led him to was occupied by 6 people, all younger than Ryan, all looking at him with undisguised curiosity. Alexandra made introductions quickly. James from engineering, Priya from data analysis, Mike from legal, Jennifer from PR, David from operations, and Keiko from design. "This is the team that will help launch our aviation safety initiative," Alexandra said, taking her seat at the head of the table. "Ryan will be leading it." "No pressure," Mike from legal muttered, earning a sharp look from Alexandra. "Actually," she said, "all the pressure. What happened to Flight 447 happens in variations every single day. Mechanical failures, human error, system breakdowns that cost lives. We have the technology to predict and prevent most of these incidents. What we've lacked is someone who understands the human element, the chaos, the fear, the split-second decisions that no algorithm can fully model. Ryan brings that." "With respect," Priya interjected, her accent softly British. "Mr. Cooper's experience, while certainly dramatic, was a single incident. How does that qualify him to lead a division that will require extensive technical knowledge?" Ryan felt the familiar sting of imposter syndrome, but before he could respond, Alexandra slid a tablet across the table. Ryan's previous work included 3 patents in supply chain optimization that reduced failure points by 40%. He restructured emergency response protocols for a logistics company that handles medical supplies, saving an estimated 300 lives in disaster zones over 2 years. His academic background includes dual degrees in operations management and human psychology. The only reason he was on that plane looking for work was corporate downsizing that had nothing to do with performance. She looked around the table. "Any other concerns about qualifications?" The room was quiet. "Good. Then let's talk about what we're actually building here." The next 3 hours were a blur of presentations, data models, and ambitious projections. Nexus had already developed predictive algorithms that could identify potential mechanical failures before they became critical. They had sensors that could detect stress patterns in metal, AI that could analyze pilot communications for signs of fatigue or impairment. What they needed was someone to tie it all together, to bridge the gap between technology and implementation. "The airlines will resist," David from operations said. "They always do. New systems mean training, costs, admitting their current methods are insufficient." "Then we make it irresistible," Ryan said, surprising himself by speaking up. "We don't sell them safety. They think they're already safe. We sell them efficiency. Predictive maintenance means fewer delays. Stress detection means fewer sick days. Frame it as profit, not precaution." James from engineering leaned forward. "That's actually brilliant. Evil, but brilliant." "Not evil," Ryan corrected. "Strategic. The end goal is saving lives. If we have to speak their language to get there, so be it." Alexandra smiled slightly, a look that said she'd known this would happen, had planned for it. This is why Ryan leads this division. He understands that the best solution isn't always the most obvious one. After the meeting, as the team dispersed to their various departments, Alexandra walked Ryan to what would be his office. It was corner space with the same mountain views, furnished simply but elegantly. A nameplate already sat on the desk, Ryan Cooper, Director of Aviation Safety. "This is too much," he said. "This is exactly right." Alexandra moved to the window, looking out at the city below. "Can I tell you something? When I was trapped in that plane, when the smoke was getting thicker and I couldn't breathe, I had this moment of absolute clarity. I realized that for all my success, all my money, all my power, I was going to die alone in a window seat, and the world would move on. Stock prices might dip for a day. The board would find a new CEO. But nothing I'd built would actually matter." She turned to face him. "Then you appeared out of the smoke like some kind of reluctant angel, and you asked my name. Not because you knew who I was, but because you wanted me to focus on something other than dying. In that moment, you saw me as a person worth saving, not a net worth or a corporate title. Anyone would have, if you say that one more time, I'm cutting your salary in half. Ryan laughed, the tension breaking. Noted. The point is, this division isn't just about aviation safety. It's about remembering that every data point represents a life. Every prevented failure is a family that stays whole. You understand that in a way that no MIT graduate or Silicon Valley prodigy could. That's why you're here. Well, Ryan's phone buzzed. The school. I need to take this, he said, anxiety spiking. It's Emma's school. Alexandra nodded, stepping out to give him privacy. Mr. Cooper? This is Principal Martinez at Ridgemont Elementary. There's been an incident with Emma. His heart stopped. Is she hurt? No, nothing like that. But she got into an altercation with another student. We need you to come in. Ryan found Alexandra in the hallway. I have to go. Emma's in some kind of trouble at school. Go, she said immediately. Family first always. That's company policy. On my first day? Especially on your first day. It sets the precedent. Go take care of your daughter. Ryan drove to the school with a mixture of worry and confusion. Emma had never been in trouble before. She was the quiet kid who read during recess, who made friends with lunch ladies rather than fellow students. He found her in the principal's office, her dinosaur dress torn at the sleeve, her face set in defiant lines that reminded him painfully of Sarah's stubborn streak. What happened? He asked, kneeling beside her chair. She said you were nobody special, Emma burst out. She said her dad looked you up, and you were just some unemployed loser who got lucky. Emma, Melody Richardson is a mean, stupid girl, and I told her so. Principal Martinez, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes but firm manner, intervened. Emma pushed Melody. That's not acceptable, regardless of what was said. She pushed me first. Emma, Ryan's voice was gentle but firm. Tell me exactly what happened. The story came out in fits and starts. Melody Richardson, daughter of some hedge fund manager, had apparently overheard her parents discussing the Flight 447 incident. She'd come to school armed with her father's dismissive opinion of Ryan's heroics, calling it a publicity stunt, suggesting he'd probably caused the fire himself for attention. She said you weren't a real hero, Emma finished, tears finally spilling. But you are. You are, Daddy. Ryan pulled her into a hug, feeling her small body shake with righteous anger. Over her head, he met the principal's eyes. I'll talk to her about appropriate responses to bullying, he said carefully. But it sounds like perhaps Melody also needs some guidance about kindness. Both girls will receive appropriate consequences, Principal Martinez said diplomatically. Emma will have lunch detention for the rest of the week. Pushing is never acceptable. Even when someone pushes you first? Even then. We use our words, not our hands. Emma nodded miserably, burrowing deeper into Ryan's embrace. They drove home in silence, Emma staring out the window with the kind of intensity that suggested deep thought. Finally, as they pulled into their new driveway, she spoke. I'm not sorry. I'm not. She was being mean about you. You're my dad. I'm supposed to protect you too, aren't I? Ryan felt his heart crack a little. Oh, baby, that's not your job. I'm the protector in this family. But who protects you? He didn't have an answer for that. They were eating lunch, grilled cheese and tomato soup, Emma's comfort meal, when the doorbell rang. Ryan opened it to find Alexandra standing there with a gift bag and a concerned expression. I heard there was an incident, she said. Principal Martinez is married to one of our board members. News travels. You didn't have to come. Yes, I did. She held up the bag. Ice cream emergency kit, all the best flavors. Emma appeared in the doorway, eyes widening. Are you Aunt Alex? Alexandra blinked. Well, Emma, this is Ms. Steele, from Daddy's work. The lady from the plane, Emma said knowingly. Daddy saved you. Yes, he did. Alexandra knelt to Emma's level. And I heard you were defending him today. That was very brave. I pushed Melody Richardson, Emma confessed. She's mean. Sometimes mean people need pushing, Alexandra said, earning a sharp look from Ryan. But maybe next time we push with words instead of hands. Emma considered this. Words don't seem very pushy. Oh, you'd be surprised. I once made a billionaire cry using nothing but a quarterly earnings report. Emma giggled, the first genuine smile since Ryan had picked her up. Do you want to see my dinosaur research facility? And just like that, Alexandra was pulled into their world. She spent the next hour in Emma's room listening with apparent genuine interest to detailed explanations of the Mesozoic era, asking questions that delighted Emma with their sophistication. You know about the Pachycephalosaurus? Emma said, amazed. Most adults only know T-Rex and maybe Triceratops. I run a tech company, Alexandra said. Research is kind of my thing. Ryan watched from the doorway, seeing his daughter bloom under attention from someone other than him or Mrs. Patterson. It had been just the two of them for so long, their world small and contained by necessity. This felt like opening a window in a stuffy room. Can I ask you something? Emma said suddenly, her voice serious. Of course. Are you dating my dad? Ryan choked on air. Emma! But Alexandra just laughed. No, sweetheart. Your dad and I are friends, colleagues. He's going to help my company save lives. Oh. Emma looked disappointed. You'd be a good girlfriend. You know about dinosaurs and you're pretty and you brought ice cream. The three essential qualities, Alexandra agreed solemnly. Later, after Emma had been convinced to do her homework despite the day's excitement, Ryan walked Alexandra to her car, a Tesla that probably cost more than he'd make in his first year. Thank you, he said, for coming. You didn't have to. I wanted to. She paused, keys in hand. She's remarkable, Ryan. You've done an amazing job with her. I've just tried to keep us both alive and relatively happy. That's all any parent does, the good ones anyway. Something flickered across her face, an old pain quickly suppressed. My parents threw money at me instead of time. Boarding schools, tutors, programs. I had everything except what Emma has, a parent who would push Melody Richardson for being mean. I didn't push anyone. But you would have. If no one had been watching, if it wouldn't have embarrassed Emma, you would have found a way to make it right. She was right, and they both knew it. The Richardson family, Alexandra continued, getting into her car, owns significant shares in 3 airlines. Might make our safety initiative complicated. Everything's complicated. True, but some complications are worth it. She looked meaningfully toward the house where Emma was undoubtedly watching from her window. Some things are worth fighting for, even when it's messy. She drove away, leaving Ryan standing in his driveway in this neighborhood he didn't belong in, thinking about complications and worth and the strange turns life could take. 6 weeks ago, he'd been nobody special, exactly what Melody Richardson had called him. Now he was director of a division that didn't exist yet, living in a house he couldn't afford on his own, his daughter defending him from bullies who wore designer kindergarten clothes. The universe had a strange sense of humor. That evening, as he tucked Emma into bed in her new room with its freshly painted walls and window facing the mountains, she asked, "Daddy, is our life different now?" "Yes, baby, it is." Better different or just different different? He thought about the question seriously. Money didn't solve everything. The new job would be challenging, maybe impossible. The social dynamics of Emma's new school were already proving complicated. And there was something between him and Alexandra that he couldn't quite name, something that felt dangerous to examine too closely. But Emma had a swing set. They had health insurance. He had work that might actually matter, might actually save lives instead of just pushing papers and watching profits that benefited someone else. Better different, he said finally. Definitely better different. Emma smiled, satisfied, and closed her eyes. Good. I like Ms. Alexandra. She's going to be important. You think so? I know so. I'm very smart about people. Ryan couldn't argue with that. Emma had inherited her mother's intuition about others, that ability to see through facades to the person underneath. If she said Alexandra would be important, she was probably right. He sat in Emma's room for a while after she fell asleep, watching her breathe, thinking about push and pull, about fire and rescue, about the unexpected ways lives could intertwine. Through the window, the mountain stood silent against the darkening sky, eternal and unmoved by human drama. His phone buzzed. Alexandra again. Forgot to mention, press conference Thursday about the safety initiative. You'll need to speak. Don't worry, PR will prep you. Just be yourself. Be himself. As if he knew who that was anymore. The unemployed single father was gone. The hero of Flight 447 was a media creation. The director of aviation safety was still theoretical. Somewhere between all these versions was the real Ryan Cooper, whoever that turned out to be. Oh, Alexandra's text continued. And Emma's right. Melody Richardson is mean. Her father's worse. But we'll handle them with words, not pushing. See you tomorrow. Ryan smiled despite himself. Tomorrow he'd return to Nexus, start building something from nothing, try to prevent future Flight 447s. Thursday he'd face cameras and questions, pretend confidence he didn't feel. And somewhere in between, he'd keep being Emma's father, the only role he truly understood. The first day was ending, but it felt like a beginning. Not the dramatic, fiery beginning of the plane crash, but something quieter, more sustainable. The kind of beginning that happened when you stopped running from who you were and started building who you might become. Outside, suburban Denver settled into evening routines. Sprinklers whispered across perfect lawns. Children were called inside for dinner. The ordinary world continued its ordinary spin, unaware that sometimes extraordinary things grew from ordinary moments, that heroes were just people who did what was necessary. When necessary became critical. Ryan closed Emma's door softly and went to his own room, still mostly empty, still feeling borrowed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new complications. But tonight, his daughter was safe. They had a home. And somewhere across the city, Alexandra Steele was probably working late, building empires while remembering what it felt like to almost lose everything. They were connected now, all of them, by circumstance and choice, by fire and its aftermath. Where it would lead, Ryan couldn't say. But for the first time in longer than he could remember, he was curious to find out. The press conference preparation began at dawn on Wednesday, with Jennifer from PR arriving at Ryan's office carrying 2 coffees and what looked like a script thick enough to be a novel. She set both on his desk with the efficiency of someone who'd orchestrated hundreds of these events, her expression suggesting this particular one carried more weight than usual. The media's been frothing since the flight, she said without preamble. Hero saves billionaire CEO is the kind of story that drives news cycles for weeks. We've managed to control most of it, but tomorrow you'll be in front of cameras and they'll want blood. Blood seems dramatic. You haven't met the press pool yet. Jennifer opened the script, revealing pages of potential questions and suggested responses. They'll want to know everything. Your relationship with Alexandra, whether this job is legitimate or payback, if you're planning to sue the airline, whether you've sold your story to Hollywood. Hollywood? Ryan almost spit out his coffee. 3 studios have already called. Netflix wants a limited series. She said it matter-of-factly, as if having your trauma optioned for entertainment was perfectly normal. Alexandra turned them all down, but they'll approach you directly tomorrow. Ryan spent the morning reviewing Jennifer's materials, practicing answers that sounded authentic without revealing too much. The truth, he was learning, needed to be carefully packaged for public consumption. Yes, he'd helped someone during the emergency. No, he hadn't known who Alexandra was at the time. Yes, his qualifications made him ideal for the aviation safety role. No, this wasn't about favoritism or obligation. Don't mention Emma unless directly asked, Jennifer instructed. If they bring her up, keep it brief. The less they know about your daughter, the safer she'll be from scrutiny. The thought of reporters digging into Emma's life made Ryan's stomach turn. He'd already noticed photographers outside Ridgemont Elementary that morning, though security had kept them at a distance. The principal had assured him Emma wouldn't be bothered, but children talked, parents gossiped, and secrets had a way of becoming currency in wealthy communities. Alexandra appeared in his doorway just after lunch, looking uncharacteristically hesitant. She was wearing what Ryan was beginning to recognize as her armor, a perfectly tailored suit that probably cost more than most people's cars, her hair pulled back severely, makeup flawless but somehow cold. This was the CEO version, not the woman who'd eaten ice cream on his living room floor while Emma explained dinosaur digestion. "How's the prep going?" "Jennifer's thorough," Ryan said, gesturing at the stack of papers. "I'm supposed to memorize 47 potential responses by tomorrow." "Forget all that." Alexandra entered the office, closing the door behind her. "Jennifer means well, but scripted answers will make you seem fake. The media already thinks this whole thing is a publicity stunt. If you sound rehearsed, you'll confirm their suspicions." "So what do I do?" "Tell the truth. Not all of it, but enough. You saved someone's life because it was the right thing to do. The job came later based on merit. Keep it simple." She moved to the window, her reflection wavering in the glass. "There's something else. Richard Richardson, Melody's father, has been making calls. He's suggesting to anyone who'll listen that this whole thing was staged, that I hired you before the flight to generate positive PR for the safety initiative. That's insane. That's business. Richardson owns stakes in airlines that will lose money if our safety systems become industry standard. Discrediting you discredits the project." Ryan felt anger rise in his chest, hot and familiar. He's using his daughter's schoolyard bullying as a business tactic? Men like Richardson use everything as a business tactic. Their children, their marriages, their charity work. It's all leverage. Alexandra turned from the window, and for a moment her mask slipped, revealing exhaustion underneath. "I've been fighting men like him my entire career. They can't stand that I succeeded without their permission, without their networks, without sleeping my way to the top like they all assumed I must have." The rawness in her voice surprised Ryan. He'd seen Alexandra commanding boardrooms, had watched her reduce grown executives to stammering apologies with a single raised eyebrow, but this was different. This was personal. "Is that what they're saying about us?" he asked quietly. "That we're involved?" "Of course. A woman can't possibly hire a man based on his qualifications. There must be something sexual, something transactional beyond mere competence." She laughed bitterly. "I've been called a lot of things in my career, but this is the first time I've been accused of staging a plane crash to cover an affair." "Alexandra, don't." She straightened, the CEO mask sliding back into place. "This isn't your problem to solve. Just do the press conference, be yourself, and let me handle Richardson." But Ryan couldn't let it go. That evening, after Emma was asleep, he found himself researching Richard Richardson. Investment banker, inherited wealth supplemented by questionable deals during the 2008 crisis. 3 divorces that had somehow left him richer each time. And in every photo, the same smug expression his daughter had worn while calling Ryan a nobody. His phone rang, an unknown number with a Denver area code. "Mr. Cooper, this is Richard Richardson. I believe our daughters attend the same school." Ryan's grip on the phone tightened. "Mr. Richardson, I thought we should talk man to man. This situation with the girls is unfortunate, but children will be children. However, the larger situation, your sudden prominence, this job you've somehow acquired, that concerns me." "I'm not sure what you mean." Richardson chuckled, the sound like ice cracking. "Come now, Mr. Cooper, we both know what's happening here. Alexandra Steele needed a sympathetic figure to front her new initiative. You needed a job. A mutual beneficial arrangement, I'm sure, but let's not pretend it's more than it is." "You're suggesting I'm unqualified?" "I'm suggesting you're a prop. A very lucky prop, who happened to be in the right place at the right time, but a prop nonetheless. The problem is, props don't last. Eventually, Alexandra will find a new project, a new cause, and you'll be left with nothing. Again." Ryan felt his jaw clench. "Is there a point to this call?" "The point is, I could make things easier for you. My investment group has interests in various sectors. A man with your limited background could find steady work, good pay, without the scrutiny that comes with being Alexandra Steele's pet project. All you'd need to do is step back, cite family concerns, let someone more qualified take over the safety initiative." "Someone you approve of?" "Someone who understands how business actually works." Ryan was quiet for a moment, thinking about Emma defending him, about Alexandra's exhaustion, about the 69 people who'd survived Flight 447, because emergency systems had worked just well enough, just long enough. "Mr. Richardson, I'm going to say this once. I'm not a prop. I'm not a pet project. and I'm certainly not for sale. Your daughter pushed mine first, and you just tried to push me. Neither of you seems to understand that some people push back. You're making a mistake, Cooper. Maybe, but it's mine to make." He hung up, his hands shaking slightly with adrenaline. Through Emma's baby monitor, he still used it, paranoid since Sarah's death about not hearing if she needed him. He could hear her peaceful breathing. Whatever Richardson might do, whatever the media might say, that sound reminded him what actually mattered. Thursday arrived wrapped in gray clouds that promised snow but delivered only cold wind. Ryan stood in his bathroom at 5 a.m., staring at himself in the mirror, trying to see what the cameras would see. An ordinary man with extraordinary circumstances thrust upon him? A fraud propped up by a grateful billionaire? Or something in between, something harder to categorize? Emma appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Why are you awake?" "Big day at work. Why are you awake?" "Bad dream." She patted over and wrapped her arms around his waist. "There were reporters, and they kept asking me about Mom." Ryan's heart clenched. He knelt down to her level. "Em, no one's going to ask you about Mom. And if anyone ever bothers you, you tell me immediately, okay? Melody said her dad says you're going to embarrass yourself today." "Melody's dad says a lot of things." "Are you scared?" He considered lying, then decided against it. "A little." "More scared than the plane?" "Different scared. The plane was about surviving. This is about, I don't know, being enough, I guess." Emma studied him with those serious eyes that belonged on someone much older. "You're always enough, Daddy. Even when we lived in the small apartment and had cereal for dinner sometimes. Even when you cried after you thought I was asleep, you were still enough." Ryan pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo, feeling the weight of love so profound it almost hurt. "When did you get so wise?" "Tuesday." The press conference was scheduled for 2 p.m. at the Nexus headquarters. Ryan arrived early to find the lobby transformed into a media circus. Cameras were being positioned, reporters were doing sound checks, and Jennifer was orchestrating it all with the intensity of a general preparing for battle. "You'll enter from the left," she instructed, leading Ryan through the choreography. "Alexandra will introduce the initiative, then bring you up. 5 minutes of prepared remarks. Here's your final version. Then 15 minutes of questions. I'll signal when it's time to wrap up." The prepared remarks were simpler than what he'd been practicing, just a brief statement about the importance of human factors in aviation safety. Nothing about the fire, nothing about heroism, just forward-looking corporate speak that felt like wearing someone else's clothes. Alexandra found him in the green room 30 minutes before showtime. She was wearing a black dress that managed to be both professional and subtly defiant, her war paint perfectly applied. "How are you holding up?" "Richardson called me last night. Offered me a job if I'd step aside." Her eyes flashed dangerously. "He did what?" "I turned him down, possibly not politely." "Good." She sat beside him on the uncomfortable couch, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something expensive and complicated. "Ryan, whatever happens out there, whatever they ask or imply or accuse, remember that you earned this position. Not through the fire, but through 12 years of exceptional work that idiots failed to value. I just happened to be smart enough to recognize it. Alexandra, also," she continued, her voice softer, "Emma's right. You are enough, more than enough. You're the kind of father I wish I'd had, the kind of person this industry desperately needs, and frankly, the only reason I'm not a complete cynic about humanity anymore." Before Ryan could respond, Jennifer appeared in the doorway. "It's time." The conference room was packed, cameras creating a wall of black glass eyes. Ryan recognized some faces from the news, including Harrison Beck from Channel 9, who'd been particularly aggressive in trying to get an interview. The air felt electric with anticipation, the kind of energy that preceded either triumph or disaster. Alexandra took the podium with the confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. She outlined the safety initiative with precise eloquence, statistics flowing seamlessly into vision, corporate speak somehow becoming passionate when filtered through her conviction. Then she turned to Ryan. "To lead this initiative, we needed someone who understood both the technical and human elements of aviation safety, Someone who'd proven themselves not just in crisis, but in consistent, innovative work over years. I'd like to introduce Ryan Cooper, our new Director of Aviation Safety. Ryan stood, his legs surprisingly steady, and took his place at the podium. The prepared remarks were in his pocket, but looking out at the sea of faces, he made a decision. 6 weeks ago, he began, ignoring Jennifer's frantic hand signals, I was unemployed. I was on Flight 447 returning from another failed job interview, wondering how I was going to explain to my 7-year-old daughter that things weren't going to get better anytime soon. Then the plane caught fire. The room went absolutely silent. I'm not going to stand here and claim to be a hero. I did what seemed necessary at the time. But that experience, those moments when everything was chaos and fear and split-second decisions, taught me something crucial. All our systems, all our protocols, all our technology, they're only as good as their ability to function when everything goes wrong. Not when things are optimal, not when procedures are followed perfectly, but when there's smoke and screaming and nobody knows what's happening. He could see Alexandra watching from the side, her expression unreadable. The safety initiative we're launching isn't about replacing human judgment with algorithms. It's about supporting human decision-making with better information, faster. It's about recognizing that the person in seat 23C is someone's parent, someone's child, someone who deserves to make it home. Every redundancy we build, every warning system we improve, every prediction we make, it's not about statistics. It's about people. Harrison Beck's hand shot up. Mr. Cooper, is it true you didn't know Ms. Steele's identity when you saved her? I knew her name was Alexandra. That was enough. But surely the job offer is connected to your actions that night. Ryan considered his words carefully. The job offer is connected to my 12 years of experience in operations management, my 3 patents in system optimization, and yes, my recent first-hand experience with aviation emergency procedures. Ms. Steele is too smart a businesswoman to hire someone out of mere gratitude. What about the allegations that this entire scenario was orchestrated? Another reporter called out. Which allegations would those be? Ryan asked. That Ms. Steele somehow arranged for a mechanical failure at 30,000 feet, timed my unemployment perfectly, and counted on me specifically to risk my life? That seems like an unnecessarily complex way to hire someone. A ripple of laughter went through the room. Even some reporters smiled. Mr. Cooper, a woman from the Wall Street Journal stood. Richard Richardson has suggested your qualifications are being exaggerated. How do you respond? Ryan saw Jennifer starting forward, but he held up a hand. Mr. Richardson is entitled to his opinion. He's an investment banker who inherited his initial capital. I'm an operations manager who worked his way through night school while raising an infant daughter alone. We have different definitions of qualification. The room stirred. This was the conflict they'd been hoping for. Are you suggesting Mr. Richardson's concerns are personal rather than professional? Beck pressed. I'm suggesting that anyone who uses their 7-year-old daughter to attack another 7-year-old's father might not be the best judge of professional standards. Alexandra moved slightly, and Ryan caught her expression. Surprised, maybe impressed, definitely worried. Let's focus on the initiative itself, Jennifer interjected, trying to regain control. Mr. Cooper, can you tell us about the first airline partnership? But the blood was in the water now. The reporters sensed drama, and drama sold better than corporate announcements. Is it true you're living in a house provided by Nexus Technologies? Someone shouted. It's a rental assistance program available to all relocated employees, Ryan replied. What about the rumored Netflix deal? There's no deal. There won't be a deal. Some stories don't need to be entertainment. Mr. Cooper, a young reporter Ryan didn't recognize, stood up. Your wife died 7 years ago. Has Ms. Steele provided any support for your daughter beyond the standard employee benefits? The room went quiet again, but differently this time. This was the line, and everyone knew it. Ryan gripped the podium edges, feeling the wood grain under his fingers. My daughter is off limits. Next question. But surely the public has a right to know? The public has a right to know whether our aviation safety initiative will save lives. My daughter's life is not public property. Alexandra stepped forward then, moving to the podium with controlled fury radiating from every line of her body. This press conference is about Nexus Technologies' commitment to aviation safety. Mr. Cooper has been more than generous with his time and transparency. Any reporter who continues to push into his personal family matters will find themselves and their organization permanently banned from all Nexus events. Ms. Steele, Beck said, clearly trying to salvage something from the increasingly tense atmosphere, can you address the nature of your relationship with Mr. Cooper? Professional, she said flatly. He's an employee whose qualifications made him ideal for this position. The fact that we met during a crisis is coincidental, not causal. But surely you must feel some personal connection. I feel personally connected to all 69 survivors of Flight 447. Mr. Cooper happens to be the only one qualified to run an aviation safety division. It was a good line, delivered well, but Ryan could see the reporters didn't quite buy it. There was something in the way Alexandra had moved to protect him, the way she'd said his daughter was off limits, that suggested more than professional interest. Jennifer stepped to the podium. So, we have time for 2 more questions about the actual safety initiative. But the moment was broken. The remaining questions were perfunctory, the reporters already composing their stories in their heads. Hero or opportunist, legitimate hire or guilty favor. The narrative would be shaped in editorial rooms Ryan would never see, decided by people who'd never been in a burning plane or made an impossible choice. As the conference ended and reporters began packing up, Harrison Beck approached Ryan directly. That was interesting, he said. You don't handle media like someone who's never done it before. I haven't. No, but you've handled crisis. It's similar, staying calm when everyone wants you to break, finding the right words when wrong ones would be easier. Beck handed him a business card. When you're ready to tell the whole story, call me. I'll do it right. Ryan pocketed the card without responding. He had no intention of telling the whole story to anyone. Some truths were too personal for public consumption. He found Alexandra in her office afterward, standing at her wall of windows watching the city darken toward evening. She'd kicked off her heels and looked smaller, more human. Well, she said without turning, that was a disaster. Was it? You went completely off script, picked a fight with Richardson, and basically told the Wall Street Journal to fuck off. Should I apologize? She turned then, and to his surprise, she was smiling. God, no. It was perfect. You were real, authentic, everything I can't be in those situations. You protected me. When they asked about Emma. Someone had to. You were about to vault the podium and punch that reporter. I was not. Your knuckles were white. Your jaw was doing that thing it does when you're really angry. She paused, realizing what she'd revealed, that she'd been watching him closely enough to notice his tells. They stood there in the growing darkness, the city lights creating constellations below them, neither quite sure what to say next. The professional distance they'd maintained was eroding, worn away by shared trauma and mutual protection. Ryan's phone buzzed. Emma's school. I should go, Alexandra said. Always go. He was at the door when she spoke again. Ryan? Richardson's going to escalate. He can't stand being challenged publicly. Be careful. What can he actually do? You'd be surprised. Men like him have ways of making life difficult that don't leave fingerprints. Ryan thought about Emma, about their new life that still felt fragile as spun glass. Let him try. But as he drove toward Emma's school, he wondered if bravado was enough. Richardson had money, connections, the kind of power that moved invisibly through society's upper echelons. Ryan had truth and stubbornness and a 7-year-old daughter who believed he could save anyone. He hoped that would be enough. Emma was waiting in the principal's office again, but this time she was beaming. Principal Martinez looked amused rather than concerned. Emma gave a presentation today about aviation safety, she explained. It was comprehensive. She used your computer thing to show the whole class about airplane fires and how heroes help people, Emma chimed in. Timothy Chen said his mom saw you on TV and said you were brave. She was beaming. Principal Martinez looked amused rather than concerned. Emma gave a presentation today about aviation safety, she explained. It was comprehensive. She used your computer thing to show the whole class about airplane fires and how heroes help people, Emma chimed in. Timothy Chen said his mom saw you on TV and said you were brave. M, you can't use my work materials for show and tell. It wasn't show and tell, it was current events. Mrs. Patterson helped me prepare. She pulled out a crumpled piece of paper covered in her careful handwriting. I got an A+ and a special commendation for civic awareness. Principal Martinez smiled. She was very thorough, perhaps a bit too detailed about combustion temperatures, but the class was engaged. As they walked to the car, Emma slipped her hand into his. Melody Richardson didn't say anything mean today. That's good. I think she was impressed. Her dad doesn't save people. He just moves money around on computers. That's a job too, Em. Different people do different things. But not everyone does the right thing when it matters. Out of the mouths of babes, Ryan thought. He was buckling Emma into her booster seat when he noticed it. A black sedan parked across from the school, windows tinted, engine running. It had been there when he'd arrived and was still there now, 20 minutes later. Em, did you see that car this morning? She looked where he was pointing. Maybe. There are always fancy cars here. Ryan memorized the license plate, then drove home, taking a deliberately circuitous route. The sedan didn't follow, but his paranoia had been triggered. Richardson had said he could make things difficult. How difficult, exactly? That evening, while Emma did homework at the kitchen table, Ryan called Alexandra. There was a car outside Emma's school, black sedan, tinted windows, just sitting there. Did you get the plate? He gave it to her. I'm probably being paranoid. After that press conference, paranoia is just good sense. I'll have my security team run the plate. You have a security team? I have a security company. Richardson isn't the first powerful man I've pissed off. She paused. Ryan, maybe you and Emma should stay somewhere else for a few days. I have a place in Vail, very private, excellent security. We're not running from a bully in a suit. This particular bully owns significant stakes in 3 airlines, 2 media companies, and has connections throughout Colorado politics. This isn't a schoolyard, Ryan. No, but the principle is the same. You don't let them see you're scared. Even when you are? Especially then. Alexandra was quiet for a moment. You're either very brave or very stupid. My daughter thinks I'm brave. I'd hate to disappoint her. Your daughter is 7. You're allowed to be human. Not to her. To her, I need to be invincible, at least for a few more years. After they hung up, Ryan sat watching Emma work through math problems, her tongue poking out slightly in concentration. She looked so much like Sarah in moments like this, the same furrow between her eyebrows, the same determined focus. Sarah would have known how to handle this situation. She'd always been better at navigating complex social dynamics, at seeing 3 moves ahead while Ryan was still processing the first. But Sarah was gone, and he was what Emma had. It would have to be enough. His phone rang. Jennifer from PR. The press coverage is actually better than expected, she said without preamble. You came across as authentic, protective of your family, unwilling to be intimidated. The journal's running a piece that's surprisingly favorable, focusing on your patents and work history. Beck did a segment that was almost glowing. And Richardson? Posted a statement on his company's website about concerns regarding the qualifications and motivations of certain individuals being elevated beyond their competence. No names, but everyone knows who he means. Charming. Ryan, Alexandra wanted me to tell you, the board is fully supportive. They've seen the preliminary plans for the safety initiative, and they're impressed. Richardson can make noise, but he can't touch your position. It's not my position I'm worried about. I know. Security has been increased at Emma's school, discreetly, but it's there. After dinner, as Ryan was loading the dishwasher, Emma approached with her serious face on. Daddy, are we in trouble? No, baby. Why would you think that? There were new security guards at school, and Mrs. Martinez walked me to the car herself instead of letting me wait with the other kids. And you keep looking out the windows like you're checking for something. He dried his hands and sat down, pulling her onto his lap. You know how some people didn't like that I helped on the airplane? Like Melody's dad. Like Melody's dad. Well, sometimes when people don't like something, they try to cause problems. But we have friends who are making sure we're safe. Like Ms. Alexandra? Like Ms. Alexandra. Emma considered this. Is she our fairy godmother? Ryan laughed, the first genuine laugh all day. I don't think she'd appreciate that title. But she's magic. She appeared in Smoke and Fire, and now everything's different. We appeared in her Smoke and Fire, technically. Same thing, Emma yawned. I'm not scared, Daddy. You won't let anything bad happen. The absolute faith in her voice was both heartwarming and terrifying. Ryan carried her to bed, tucked her in with her elephant, and sat in the dark listening to her breathing even out into sleep. Outside, suburban Denver went about its evening routines, unaware of the small dramas playing out behind closed doors. His phone lit up with a text from Alexandra. License plate belongs to a private security firm. Richardson hired them, but just for surveillance, nothing more. My team will be watching them watch you. It's like Inception, but with more lawyers. Despite everything, Ryan smiled. The situation was surreal. Unemployed to hero to corporate executive to target, all in 6 weeks. But surreal was better than hopeless, which was where he'd been before Flight 447. Another text from Alexandra. You did well today, better than well. You did what I never could. You were yourself. He typed back, Is that a compliment? The highest I can give? Being yourself in front of cameras is like being yourself in a burning plane. It requires a particular kind of courage. Or a particular kind of stupidity. That too. They're often related. Ryan set down the phone and went to his own window, looking out at the Denver skyline in the distance. Somewhere in those lights was Richardson, probably plotting his next move. Somewhere was Alexandra, probably still working, building her empire one algorithm at a time. And here was Ryan, standing guard over a sleeping 7-year-old who believed he could save the world. He couldn't save the world. He'd barely saved one person from one fire. But maybe that was enough. Maybe saving one person, doing one right thing when it mattered, was how you changed everything. The black sedan was gone when he checked the next morning, but Ryan knew it would be back. Men like Richardson didn't give up easily. They were used to winning through persistence, through pressure, through the slow grinding weight of inevitable power. But Ryan had survived actual fire. He'd walked through flames for a stranger who became an ally, who might become something more, though he wasn't ready to examine that possibility yet. He'd rebuilt his life from ashes more than once, after Sarah's death, after job loss, after every small catastrophe that threatened to break him. Richardson could watch. He could whisper. He could wage his small war of intimidation and influence. Ryan would endure. For Emma, for the work that might actually matter, for the strange new life that had emerged from disaster, he would endure because that's what fathers did, what survivors did, what heroes did when the cameras were off and the real work began. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The safety initiative would launch properly. He'd have to prove himself to skeptical engineers and resistant airlines. Richardson would undoubtedly escalate his campaign. But tonight, Emma was safe. The house was quiet, and in the distance, the mountain stood eternal against the star-filled sky, unmoved by human drama, enduring as Ryan would endure, one day at a time, one crisis at a time, one small act of courage building on another until survival became something more, something that might even be called thriving. The first real test came 3 weeks later, when United Airlines agreed to a preliminary meeting about the safety initiative. Ryan stood in the Nexus conference room at 6 a.m., reviewing presentation materials while the city slowly woke up 32 floors below. His team had been working 18-hour days to prepare, and it showed in the comprehensive analysis spread across the table. Predictive models, cost-benefit analyses, implementation timelines that seemed aggressive but achievable. Alexandra entered carrying 2 coffees, looking like she'd never left the building. Her hair was slightly mussed, yesterday's makeup touched up but not replaced, and there was an energy about her that Ryan recognized, the manic focus that came from being so deep in a project that the outside world ceased to exist. "Did you sleep at all?" he asked, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Sleep is a construct invented by people without vision," she replied, but her smile undermined the bravado. "I've been running simulations all night. If United adopts even half of what we're proposing, we could prevent approximately 12 major incidents per year. 12 doesn't sound like much to a boardroom. 12 incidents, affecting an average of 180 passengers each, with lawsuits averaging 30 million per incident. The math becomes compelling quickly. Ryan studied her as she pulled up holographic projections on the conference room's smart glass. There were shadows under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide, a tremor in her hands that suggested too much caffeine and not enough food. Since the press conference, she'd thrown herself into the project with an intensity that bordered on obsessive. "When's the last time you ate?" he asked. "I had a protein bar. Yesterday, I think." Alexandra, don't. She turned from the projections, and he saw something raw in her expression. "This has to work, Ryan. Not just for the company, not for the aviation industry, but because—" And she paused, seeming to struggle with the words. "Because for the first time in my career, I'm building something that matters. Really matters. Not just profit margins and market share, but actual human lives. It already matters. You matter." She looked at him sharply, as if searching for mockery or empty flattery, but found neither. "Careful, Mr. Cooper, that almost sounded personal rather than professional." Before Ryan could respond, his phone buzzed. Emma's school. His heart rate spiked. These calls never brought good news lately. "Mr. Cooper, this is Principal Martinez. There's been an incident. Is Emma hurt?" "She's fine, but she's quite upset. It seems some of the children have been sharing stories about you and Ms. Steele, adult stories that I suspect came from overheard parental conversations." Ryan's jaw clenched. "I'll be right there." Alexandra was already grabbing her jacket. "I'm coming with you." "That might make things worse. Or it might show a united front. Richardson's clearly escalating through his daughter. Maybe it's time we escalated back." The drive to Ridgemont Elementary was tense. Ryan's hands gripped the steering wheel while Alexandra made calls, her voice sharp as she issued instructions to her legal team. The stories about them had started online, anonymous posts on parenting forums suggesting impropriety, questioning the timeline of their relationship, implying that Emma was being exposed to inappropriate situations, all carefully crafted to avoid libel while poisoning the well of public opinion. They found Emma in the nurse's office, curled in a chair with tears streaming down her face. When she saw Ryan, she launched herself into his arms. "They said horrible things," she sobbed into his shoulder. "They said you and Ms. Alexandra were doing gross stuff on the airplane. They said I was going to have a new mommy who only wanted our money." Ryan felt rage rise in his chest, hot and dangerous. Over Emma's head, he saw Alexandra's expression harden into something he'd never seen before. A cold fury that transformed her face into something almost frightening. Principal Martinez closed the door, giving them privacy. Emma was very brave. She told them they were lying, that they didn't know anything about her family. But when Melody said her father had pictures... "Pictures?" Alexandra's voice was deadly quiet. "Apparently Mr. Richardson has been having you both followed. Nothing inappropriate, of course. Just photos of you together at work, arriving at school together today, that sort of thing. But presented with certain implications." Ryan set Emma down gently, kneeling to her level. "Em, look at me. Everything they said was lies. You know that, right?" She nodded, hiccuping through her tears. "But why would they lie? Why would Melody's dad make up stories? How did you explain adult cruelty to a 7-year-old? How did you tell her that some people would destroy anything that challenged their power, even if it meant using children as weapons?" Alexandra knelt beside them, her voice gentle, despite the anger Ryan could see her controlling. "Emma, sometimes when people feel threatened, they act badly. Your dad is very good at his job, and that makes some people uncomfortable. So they try to hurt him through you because they're too cowardly to face him directly." Emma looked at her with those two wise eyes. "Like villains in movies?" "Exactly like that. But you know what happens to villains in movies? The heroes stop them? Every single time." Principal Martinez cleared her throat. "I've already called Melody's parents in for a meeting. This behavior is completely unacceptable. However, I should warn you that Mr. Richardson is on the school board. This could become complicated." "Everything with Richardson becomes complicated," Alexandra said, standing. "But Principal Martinez, I should mention that Nexus Technologies has been considering sponsoring a new STEM program. Full computer lab, robotics equipment, coding curriculum from kindergarten up. We were looking at several schools, but Ridgemont could be perfect, assuming it maintains its commitment to protecting all students from bullying. The principal's eyes widened slightly. She knew a counteroffer when she heard one. We absolutely maintain that commitment. Ryan carried Emma out of the school, her arms wrapped around his neck, her face buried in his shoulder. Alexandra walked beside them, on the phone with someone, her voice low but urgent. As they reached the parking lot, a familiar black sedan sat idling across the street. "That's the car," Emma whispered. "It's been there every day." Alexandra hung up her phone and walked directly toward the sedan. Ryan called after her, but she didn't stop. She knocked on the driver's window, which rolled down to reveal a startled-looking man in a suit. "You can tell Richardson that surveilling a 7-year-old is a new low, even for him," she said, loud enough for several passing parents to hear in turn. "And you can also tell him that if one more photo appears anywhere, if one more story gets whispered in Emma Cooper's presence, I will use every resource at my disposal to destroy him. Not his business. Him. Personally. Comprehensively. Permanently." The driver stammered something about just doing his job, but Alexandra had already turned away, walking back to Ryan and Emma with the controlled grace of someone who'd just declared war. "That was probably not strategic," Ryan said quietly. "Fuck strategy. They made Emma cry." Emma lifted her head. "You said a bad word." "I did. Sometimes bad words are necessary when dealing with bad people." As they drove back toward the Nexus building, Emma couldn't return to class in her current state, and Ryan wasn't leaving her alone. His phone rang. "Richardson." "Speaker," Alexandra mouthed. Ryan hit the button. "Richardson." "Mr. Cooper, I heard there was some unpleasantness at school today. Children can be so cruel to each other." "Cut the shit, Richardson. We know you're behind this." "Behind what? I can't control what other parents discuss in private. If they have concerns about the example being set for their children, their concerns being the stories you're spreading," Richardson chuckled. "I'm a concerned parent, nothing more. But I do worry about influences on our children. For instance, this rushed relationship between you and Ms. Steele, moving so fast, so publicly. What kind of message does that send?" Alexandra grabbed the phone. "The message, Richardson, is that two adults can work together professionally without your prurient imagination making it something else. Though I understand that might be difficult for a man who's cheated on 3 wives to comprehend." There was a pause. "Miss Steele, how delightful to hear from you. Enjoy it while you can. It's the last time you'll hear my voice without lawyers present." "Lawyers? How dramatic. Over a little schoolyard gossip?" "Over harassment of a minor, stalking, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. My legal team is creative. They'll think of more." "You'd have to prove I was involved." "No, I'd just have to make the accusation public." "Investment banker stalks 7-year-old. How do you think that plays in the Wall Street Journal?" "You wouldn't dare. The liability. Try me." Alexandra's voice was ice. "I've built a billion-dollar company from nothing. You inherited Daddy's money and connections. Which one of us do you think has less to lose?" She hung up before he could respond. Emma had been listening to all of this with wide eyes. "Are we at war with Melody's family?" "No, baby," Ryan said, catching her eye in the rearview mirror. "Adults are just having a disagreement." "A big disagreement." "Yes." "Will Melody and I have to be enemies now?" Ryan thought about the cycles of adult conflict poisoning children's friendships, about sins passing from one generation to the next. "I hope not. None of this is Melody's fault." They spent the rest of the day at Nexus, Emma setting up camp in a corner of Ryan's office with her homework and iPad while he tried to salvage preparation for the United meeting. Alexandra disappeared into conference calls with lawyers, her voice occasionally carrying through the walls, sharp, decisive, taking no prisoners. The team trickled in throughout the day, pretending not to notice the child in the corner or the tension radiating from their leadership. Priya brought Emma a hot chocolate from the cafe. James showed her how the holographic projections worked. Even Mike from legal, usually gruff and distracted, spent 10 minutes explaining why dinosaurs would have made terrible pilots, complete with spreadsheets showing wingspan to body weight ratios. "Your team is nice," Emma told Ryan during a quiet moment. "They are." They like you. I hope so. No, they really like you. Not pretend work like, real like. She paused, considering. They like Ms. Alexandra too, but they're scared of her. She can be intimidating. Not to you. Not to me, he agreed, though he wasn't entirely sure that was true. There was something about Alexandra when she was in full CEO mode that was genuinely frightening, a brilliance weaponized, aimed at whatever stood in her way. As afternoon faded to evening, Alexandra reappeared in his office, looking tired but satisfied. Richardson's backing off. His lawyers convinced him that the publicity risk isn't worth it. That simple? Nothing's ever that simple. But he'll be quiet for now. She looked at Emma, who was absorbed in a coding game James had downloaded for her. How is she? Resilient. But this can't keep happening. It won't. Alexandra sat on the edge of his desk, a gesture more casual than she usually allowed herself. I've been thinking. The United meeting, we should postpone. What? No, we've been working toward this for weeks. Your daughter needs stability right now, flying to Chicago tomorrow, being gone for 2 days? Is my job. Ryan stood, facing her. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I can't be the director who misses crucial meetings because of personal drama. This isn't drama. This is targeted harassment, which we're handling. They stared at each other, two stubborn forces meeting. Emma looked up from her iPad, watching them with interest. Are you fighting? She asked. We're discussing, Alexandra said. Looks like fighting, but the kind where you both care about the same thing and just disagree about how to help. Ryan and Alexandra exchanged glances, surprised by the perception. She's scary smart, Alexandra murmured. Gets it from her mom, Ryan said automatically, then caught himself. He rarely mentioned Sarah at work, keeping that part of his life sealed away. Alexandra's expression softened. Tell me about her. Not now. Not now as in not ever, or not now as in someday? Ryan looked at her, this complicated woman who'd crashed into their lives in literal flames, who defended Emma like a lioness, who was currently waging corporate war on their behalf. Someday, she nodded, accepting the boundary. The United meeting, you're going. I'm going. Then I'm going too. Alexandra, not negotiable. If we're presenting a united front, we need to actually be united. She glanced at Emma. Mrs. Patterson can stay overnight? Ryan nodded. The elderly neighbor had become their emergency backup, always willing despite the increasing complications of their lives. Then it's settled. Alexandra stood, smoothing her skirt. We leave at 6 a.m. The presentation is perfect. We just need to deliver it perfectly. That night, after Emma was asleep and the house was quiet, Ryan stood in his home office reviewing the materials one last time. Everything hinged on this meeting. If United signed on, other airlines would follow. The safety initiative would become real, would save lives, would justify everything. The job, the scrutiny, the conflict with Richardson. His phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. He opened it to find a photo, him and Alexandra in the parking lot that morning, her hand on Emma's back as they walked. The angle and implication were deliberately intimate, suggesting a family unit that didn't exist. The message below read, "This is just the beginning. R." Ryan deleted it, but knew others had probably received the same image. The whisper campaign would continue, just more carefully, more deniably. Richardson had been wounded, not defeated. Another text, this one from Alexandra. Got the photo too. My security team traced it. We'll handle it. Focus on United. Then a moment later, Emma's lucky to have you. He typed back, we're lucky to have you in our corner. 3 dots appeared, suggesting she was typing, then stopped. Started again. Stopped. Finally, get some sleep. Tomorrow we change an industry. But sleep didn't come easily. Ryan lay in bed thinking about the strange path that had led here, from unemployment to heroism to corporate leadership to whatever this was becoming. 6 months ago, he'd been nobody. Now he was simultaneously a hero and a target, a success story and a scandal, a single father trying to protect his daughter while also trying to save strangers from future disasters. The morning came too soon and not soon enough. Ryan dressed carefully in his best suit, the one he'd bought with his first Nexus paycheck. Emma was already awake, making her breakfast ritual of too much peanut butter on toast. "You look fancy," she observed. "Important meeting." "Are you going to win?" "It's not really about winning. Daddy." She fixed him with that Sarah look again. "Everything is about winning or losing. You taught me that in chess. You just have to decide what winning means." "What does it mean to you?" "Coming home safe, being happy, having friends." She paused. "Stopping the bad guys from hurting people on airplanes." "Then yes," Ryan said, kissing the top of her head. "I'm going to win." Mrs. Patterson arrived just as Alexandra's Tesla pulled into the driveway. The old woman and the CEO had developed an unexpected rapport over the weeks, bonding over their shared protective instincts toward the Cooper family. "You watch him," Mrs. Patterson told Alexandra quietly. "He takes care of everyone but himself." "I've noticed," Alexandra replied, glancing at Ryan as he said goodbye to Emma. The ride to the airport was quiet, both of them lost in preparation and thought. But as they boarded the Nexus corporate jet, a necessity Alexandra usually avoided but had deemed essential for this trip, Ryan caught her looking out the window with an expression he couldn't read. "Second thoughts?" he asked. "About the meeting?" "No." She paused. "About everything else?" "Constantly." "Everything else meaning?" She turned to him, and for a moment the CEO mask slipped entirely. "I haven't had a friend in 5 years, Ryan. Real friend, not colleague or employee or someone who wants something. I'd forgotten what it feels like to care about someone else's well-being more than quarterly earnings." "We're friends, aren't we? We've been through fire together, literally. You've seen me at my worst. I've seen you at yours. Your daughter calls me Aunt Alex when she thinks I'm not listening. If that's not friendship, I don't know what is." Ryan considered this. In the chaos of the last months, he hadn't stopped to categorize what Alexandra had become to them. Employer, yes. Ally, certainly. But friend? The word seemed both too small and too significant. "Friends," he agreed, and saw something in her relax. The flight was smooth, no turbulence or drama, just 2 hours of final preparation and strategy. They landed in Chicago to gray skies and bitter wind, winter asserting itself with authority. The United headquarters loomed like a fortress of glass and steel, a temple to commercial aviation where their small revolution would either begin or end. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m., giving them time to set up in the presentation room, test all the technology, run through the synchronization one more time. Alexandra transformed as they entered the building, becoming the version of herself that graced magazine covers and terrorized competitors. Brilliant, cold, absolutely in control. But Ryan saw the telltale signs of her nerves, the way she touched her earring when thinking, the slight tightening around her eyes, the extra coffee she didn't need but drank anyway. "We've got this," he told her quietly as voices approached the conference room. "We better. I've staked my reputation on it. On you." "No pressure," she almost smiled. "All the pressure. Always." The United executives entered like a pack of predators, 6 men in identical suits, each radiating the particular kind of skepticism that came from decades of being pitched revolutionary ideas that weren't. Ryan recognized the type from his previous career, gatekeepers who'd heard everything and believed nothing until proven otherwise. Alexandra opened with pure data, statistics flowing like water, each point building to an undeniable conclusion. Their current safety protocols were reactive, not proactive. They were fighting yesterday's war while tomorrow's disasters were already forming. "Ms. Steele," the lead executive, a silver-haired man named Harrison, interrupted. "Your algorithms are impressive, but theoretical. You're asking us to invest millions in preventing incidents that might never occur." This was Ryan's cue. He stood, moving to the holographic display. "Mr. Harrison, you were flying United Flight 232 in 1989. The man's expression sharpened. "How did you—" "It's public record. You were a young consultant traveling to Denver. The plane lost all hydraulic systems. By every measure, everyone should have died. But the crew improvised, used differential thrust to control the aircraft. 184 people survived, including you." Harrison nodded slowly. Our system would have detected the microscopic crack in the fan disk 15 flights before it failed. It would have alerted maintenance to a problem that looked insignificant but was actually catastrophic in waiting. Those 111 people who died? They'd be alive. The room was silent. This isn't about preventing theoretical incidents, Ryan continued. It's about seeing the disasters that are already in motion, just too small for human eyes to detect. Every plane in your fleet has stress fractures. Every pilot has patterns that indicate fatigue before they feel it. Every system has failure points that only become visible in aggregate. We're not asking you to prevent the impossible. We're offering you the ability to see what's already there. He pulled up a new display, United's own maintenance records, anonymized but recognizable. Flight 847, 3 days ago. Reported unusual vibration in engine 2. Maintenance found nothing wrong. Your own data shows this same plane has reported similar vibrations 4 times in 6 months. Our algorithm says there's an 87% chance of catastrophic failure within the next 30 flights. The executives exchanged glances. Harrison pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. That plane is scheduled for a trans-Pacific flight tomorrow, one of the younger executives said quietly. Ground it, Harrison ordered, then looked at Ryan. If we're wrong, you've inconvenienced a few hundred passengers. If we're right, we've saved their lives. Alexandra took over then, outlining implementation timelines, cost structures, the competitive advantage of being the first airline to adopt predictive safety protocols. She was magnificent, every inch the CEO who'd built an empire from nothing. But Ryan saw her glance at him periodically, drawing strength or confidence or something else from his presence. The meeting stretched to 3 hours. Every objection was met with data. Every concern was addressed with solutions. And underlying it all was the unspoken truth. Ryan had been in a burning plane. He'd lived their worst nightmare and survived. His presence gave weight to every word. Finally, Harrison stood. We need to discuss this internally, but Mr. Cooper, Ms. Steele, this is the most compelling presentation we've seen in years. When can we expect an answer? Alexandra asked. End of week, but I can tell you now, I'll be recommending we move forward. The board will want to see more specifics, but... He looked at Ryan. You're right. We're fighting yesterday's war. Maybe it's time we got ahead of tomorrow's. They maintained professional composure until they were in the elevator. Then Alexandra grabbed Ryan's arm, her eyes bright with victory. We did it. Ryan, we actually did it. They haven't signed yet. They will. Harrison's recommendation is gold. Once United signs, American and Delta will follow. We'll have the entire industry within 18 months. The elevator opened to the lobby where a small crowd of reporters waited. Someone had leaked the meeting. Ms. Steele, Mr. Cooper, can you comment on United's potential adoption of your safety system? Is this the same technology that could have prevented Flight 447? Mr. Cooper, how does your personal experience inform the system's development? Alexandra handled them with practiced ease, giving enough to satisfy without revealing anything substantial. Ryan stood beside her, trying to project confidence while his mind was already home with Emma, wondering how she'd handled school, whether Richardson had kept his word to back off. They were almost to the waiting car when a familiar voice called out. Ryan? Ryan Cooper? He turned to find a ghost from his past. David Chen, his former colleague from the company that had laid him off. David looked prosperous, wearing a suit that cost more than Ryan used to make in a month. David, Ryan kept his voice neutral. I heard about the plane thing, and this. He gestured vaguely at Alexandra, the cameras, the entire scene. Quite a change from supply chain management. Life takes unexpected turns. David laughed, but there was something bitter in it. I'll say. After the layoffs, most of us struggled. But you literally fell into success. Alexandra stepped forward, her voice cold. Mr. Cooper earned his position through 12 years of exceptional work that your company was too blind to value. His expertise in operational efficiency is exactly why our safety initiative will succeed. David looked between them, his expression calculating. Right. Expertise. Well, good luck with that. He walked away, but not before adding, Sarah would be proud. Or shocked. Hard to say. The mention of Sarah's name hit Ryan like a physical blow. Alexandra's hand found his arm, steadying. "Who was that?" she asked once they were in the car. "Someone from before. It doesn't matter." "It does if he upset you." Ryan was quiet for a moment, watching Chicago blur past the windows. "Sarah knew him. We were friends before. He was one of the people who recommended me for termination when the cuts came." "Ah, so he's an asshole." Despite everything, Ryan laughed. "Essentially, yes. Want me to destroy him? I can make some calls. He'll be unemployed by dinner." That's terrifying. And no, living well is the best revenge, right? Living well and occasionally crushing your enemies beneath your designer heels. You're wearing flats. Metaphorical heels. They caught the evening flight back to Denver, the corporate jet cutting through clear skies as the sun set behind them. Ryan dozed, exhausted from the sustained tension of the day, and woke to find Alexandra working on her laptop, having covered him with a blanket at some point. "How long was I out?" "An hour. You needed it." She closed the laptop. "Ryan, can I ask you something personal?" He nodded, still groggy. "What David said, about Sarah being proud or shocked, what did that mean?" Ryan was quiet for a long moment, deciding how much to share. Sarah was careful, cautious. She believed in security, in taking the safe path. She would have hated everything about the last few months, the risk, the publicity, the conflict. But she also would have wanted Emma to have opportunities, to be safe and provided for. So I honestly don't know what she'd think. You miss her. Every day. But it's different now. Less sharp, more like background noise that never quite goes away. How did she die? Childbirth, eclampsia that came out of nowhere. She got to hold Emma for 10 minutes before the seizures started. The doctors tried everything, but sometimes everything isn't enough. Alexandra was quiet then. Emma looks like her? So much it takes my breath away sometimes, but she has my stubbornness. Lucky girl, Sarah's beauty and your determination. You never met Sarah. No, but I've seen the photos in your house. She was luminous. They landed in Denver as snow began to fall, fat flakes that would blanket the city by morning. Mrs. Patterson reported that Emma had handled school fine, though Melody Richardson had been absent. Probably planning their next attack, Mrs. Patterson said darkly. It's handled, Alexandra assured her. The Richardsons won't be a problem anymore. Ryan walked her to her car, snow catching in her dark hair. Thank you, for today, for everything with Richardson, for... He gestured helplessly at the entirety of their situation. You don't need to thank me. This is what friends do. Is it? I don't have much experience with friends who can terrify billionaires into submission. Well, now you do. She smiled, and it transformed her face from beautiful to something more, real, warm, accessible. Give Emma my love. Tell her I'll see her this weekend for Dinosaur Museum Day. You don't have to. I want to. Besides, she's teaching me about the Jurassic period. Apparently my Triassic knowledge is woefully inadequate. Ryan watched her drive away, taillights disappearing into the snowy night, and felt something shift in his chest. Something that had been frozen since Sarah died was beginning to thaw, and it terrified him. Inside, Emma was waiting in her dinosaur pajamas, practically vibrating with excitement. Mrs. Patterson said you won. She said United is going to use your safety stuff. We don't know for sure yet. But you will. Ms. Alexandra texted me. She held up the phone Ryan had finally agreed to get her, with heavy parental controls. The text read, Your dad was amazing today. The bad guys don't stand a chance. She's not supposed to text you without permission. She asked Mrs. Patterson first. They have a whole system. Emma climbed into his lap, something she was almost getting too big for. Daddy, are you and Ms. Alexandra going to get married? What? No, Em. We're colleagues, friends. But she cares about us. And you care about her. And in movies, life isn't a movie, baby. Emma considered this. Sometimes it is. Like when you saved her from the fire. That was like a movie. That was terrifying. Movie moments usually are. She yawned. I'm glad you're home. Me too. As he carried her to bed, Emma sleepily asked, Do you think Mom would like Ms. Alexandra? Ryan's step faltered. I don't know, Em. I think she would. She would want someone smart and strong to help take care of us, and Ms. Alexandra is the smartest and strongest. He tucked her in, unable to respond to that observation, because the truth was, he thought Sarah would have liked Alexandra. They were different in almost every way, but they shared a core of steel, a determination that shaped the world rather than being shaped by it. His phone buzzed. United, at 11 p.m. Mr. Cooper, Harrison here. I know it's late, but I wanted you to know we're in. Legal will handle the contracts, but we want to fast-track implementation. Can you have a team ready by Monday? Ryan sat down heavily on his couch, the weight of success suddenly real. We'll be ready. Good. And Cooper? What you said about Flight 232, my wife was pregnant then. Our son just had his own first child. 3 generations that exist because someone saw disaster coming and improvised a solution. What you're offering isn't just about preventing crashes. It's about all the generations that get to exist because planes don't fall from the sky. After Harrison hung up, Ryan sat in his dark living room, snow falling steadily outside, and thought about generations and disasters and the strange ways life connected things. 6 months ago, he'd been drowning. Now he was helping build something that would outlive him, that would save people he'd never meet from disasters they'd never know almost happened. His phone lit up with a text from Alexandra. Harrison called me too. We did it. You did it. This is just the beginning. Just the beginning. The words should have been daunting, but instead they felt like promise. Tomorrow would bring contracts and complexity, implementation challenges, and inevitable setbacks. Richardson would regroup and attack from new angles. The media would continue to speculate about things they didn't understand. But tonight, his daughter was safe and sleeping. Their work would save lives. And somewhere across Denver, Alexandra Steele was probably still awake, planning their next move, fighting battles he didn't even know existed yet. Ryan stood and went to his window, watching the snow erase the world in white. Everything was changing, had already changed. The fire on Flight 447 had ended one life and begun another. The question now wasn't whether he could handle what came next, but whether he was brave enough to embrace it fully. His phone buzzed once more. Alexandra again. Thank you for being my friend, Ryan. I'd forgotten what it felt like to not be alone. He typed back, You're not alone. Neither are we. Not anymore. And in that moment, with snow falling and the city sleeping and the future uncertain but no longer hopeless, Ryan Cooper understood that sometimes the best things in life came wrapped in disaster, disguised as tragedy, but actually grace. Flight 47 hadn't just been about surviving a fire. It had been about finding the people who would walk through fire with you, and discovering that sometimes that made all the difference. The implementation began before dawn on Monday, with Ryan arriving at Nexus to find Alexandra already commanding what looked like a war room. Engineers, data analysts, and project managers filled the conference space, laptops and tablets creating a sea of glowing screens. The United contract had triggered something, not just a business deal, but a revolution in how airlines thought about safety. We have 6 weeks to deliver the initial system, Alexandra announced to the assembled team. United wants a pilot program running on 50 aircraft by New Year's. That means sensors installed, algorithms calibrated, and training completed for 300 maintenance personnel. James from engineering raised his hand. That timeline is insane. We'd need to work 20-hour days just to... Then we work 20-hour days, Alexandra cut him off. This isn't about comfort or convenience. Every day we delay is a day another Flight 447 could happen. Plus, Ryan watched her work, noting the changes in her since the United signing. She'd always been intense, but this was different. A personal mission disguised as corporate strategy. He found her after the meeting, alone in her office, staring at something on her tablet. What are you looking at? She turned the screen toward him. It was a news article from 3 years ago. 7 dead in preventable commuter plane crash. My cousin was on that plane, she said quietly. I never told anyone at the company. It seemed manipulative to use personal tragedy as motivation, but the investigation showed that simple predictive maintenance could have caught the engine failure. 7 people died because no one was looking at patterns. Ryan sat down across from her. Is that why you pushed so hard for this initiative? Partly. But also because of you. Watching you at the press conference, the The way you talked about people deserving to make it home, it reminded me why I started Nexus in the first place. Not for money or power, but to solve problems that matter. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her expression darkened. What is it? Richardson. He's filed a complaint with the school board about inappropriate relationships affecting the student environment. Ryan felt his jaw clench. He said he'd back off. Men like Richardson never really back off. They just change tactics. She stood, pacing to the window. I've been thinking. Maybe we need to be more strategic about this. Meaning we give him what he wants to see, just not what he expects. She turned to face him, and there was something calculating in her expression that reminded him she hadn't built a billion-dollar company by playing nice. He thinks there's something inappropriate between us, so we be completely, exaggeratedly appropriate. Every interaction public and professional. We document everything, and we let him waste his energy chasing shadows while we build something that makes his airline investments obsolete. You want to weaponize his paranoia against him? I want to protect Emma, and you, and this work. If that means letting Richardson think he's winning while we actually win, so be it. It was a good strategy, but something about it made Ryan uncomfortable. Maybe because it meant defining boundaries he'd been carefully not thinking about, acknowledging that there was something between them that needed to be controlled. That evening, Ryan came home to find Emma in the backyard, building what appeared to be an elaborate snow dinosaur with Mrs. Patterson's help. The elderly woman was pink-cheeked from cold but smiling as Emma directed the construction with scientific precision. The dorsal plates need to be more angular, Emma was saying. Stegosaurus had very specific defensive adaptations. Of course, dear, Mrs. Patterson replied, reshaping a chunk of snow. How silly of me to forget basic paleontology. Ryan watched them from the kitchen window, something warm and painful blooming in his chest. This was the childhood he'd wanted for Emma, safe, surrounded by people who cared, free to be brilliant and weird and wonderful. The fact that it had taken near death and corporate warfare to achieve it seemed like a very modern fairy tale. His phone rang. United. Cooper, Harrison here. We've had a situation. One of our 737s reported exactly the vibration pattern your algorithm predicted. We grounded it, ran deep diagnostics, and found microscopic cracks in the engine mounting. Another 10 flights and we would have had catastrophic failure over the Pacific. Ryan's knees went weak. The system worked? The system saved 300 lives, and that's just the alpha version. I'm calling an emergency board meeting. We want full implementation across the entire fleet, not just the pilot program. After Harrison hung up, Ryan stood in his kitchen, shaking slightly. They'd done it. They'd actually prevented a disaster. Those 300 people would never know how close they'd come to death, would go on living their lives oblivious to the bullet they'd dodged. Emma burst through the back door, covered in snow. Daddy, come see! We made a Stegosaurus family! He let her pull him outside, where 3 snow dinosaurs of varying sizes stood guard over the yard. There's a mommy and a daddy and a baby, Emma explained, like a real family. Mrs. Patterson caught his eye, her expression meaningful. Children see what they want to exist, she said quietly. That night, after Emma was asleep, Ryan found himself unable to settle. The victory with United should have felt like pure triumph, but Richardson's complaint to the school board gnawed at him. He pulled up the public records, finding the filing immediately. It was carefully worded, never quite making accusations, but implying impropriety through proximity. Alexandra picking Emma up from school became non-parental authority figures assuming inappropriate roles. Their joint appearance at the press conference became exposing a minor to adult business relationships. His phone buzzed. Alexandra. Can't sleep either? Saw Richardson's filing, he typed back. My lawyers are on it. But Ryan, there's something else. American Airlines wants to meet. Thursday. They're interested but skeptical after Richardson started spreading doubts about our data integrity. He's attacking the system now? He's attacking everything, but I have a plan. Can you come to the office early tomorrow? Bring Emma before school. I want to show you both something. The next morning, Ryan and Emma arrived at Nexus to find Alexandra waiting in the lobby with someone Ryan didn't recognize. A woman in her 60s with silver hair and kind eyes. This is Dr. Margaret Chen, Alexandra said. She's the best family therapist in Denver, and she's agreed to do an assessment. Ryan stiffened. An assessment? Richardson's implying that our relationship is harmful to Emma, so we get an independent expert to evaluate and document that Emma is thriving. We turn his weapon against him. Dr. Chen knelt down to Emma's level. Hi, Emma. I hear you know a lot about dinosaurs. Emma brightened immediately. I know everything about dinosaurs. Did you know that Pachycephalosaurus had a skull 9 inches thick? I did not. Would you like to tell me more while your dad and Miss Steele talk? As Dr. Chen led Emma to a quiet corner, Alexandra pulled Ryan aside. I know this feels invasive, but we need documentation. Richardson's escalating because the aviation safety system is working. United's announcement yesterday has American and Delta panicked. They're realizing we're going to transform the industry, and his investments are going to tank. So he attacks my daughter. He attacks what he thinks is vulnerable. But Emma's not vulnerable. She's remarkable. Let Dr. Chen see that. They watched as Emma animatedly explained dinosaur evolution to the therapist, using her hands to demonstrate relative sizes, her face lit with enthusiasm. Dr. Chen was taking notes, but also genuinely engaged, asking questions that made Emma think deeper. She's so much like you, Alexandra said softly. Everyone says she's like Sarah. Physically, yes, but the way she thinks, the way she refuses to be intimidated, the way she finds joy even when things are difficult, that's all you. Ryan looked at her, this woman who'd become so central to their lives so quickly. Alexandra, what are we doing? Protecting Emma, building something important, saving lives. No, I mean, what are we doing, you and me? This thing between us that Richardson sees and we pretend doesn't exist. Alexandra was quiet for a long moment. We're being careful. We're being professional. We're putting Emma and the work first. Is that enough? It has to be. But the way she said it, the way she wouldn't quite meet his eyes, suggested it wasn't enough at all. Dr. Chen's assessment took 2 hours, including separate conversations with Ryan and Alexandra, together and apart. When she finally finished, her conclusion was clear. Emma is one of the most well-adjusted children I've evaluated, she told them. She's secure, confident, intellectually engaged. She speaks about both of you with deep affection and clear understanding of boundaries. There's absolutely no indication of any harmful dynamics. In fact, I'd say the support system you've created is exemplary. Would you be willing to put that in writing? Alexandra asked. Already drafting it. Mr. Richardson's implications are not just wrong, they're potentially actionable as harassment. Emma bounced over, oblivious to the adult tensions. Dr. Chen says I can visit her office sometime to see her dinosaur fossil collection. It's small, Dr. Chen admitted, but I have a genuine velociraptor claw. Emma's eyes went wide with awe, and Ryan felt a surge of gratitude for this stranger who'd taken time to connect with his daughter beyond the assessment. After dropping Emma at school, where security was visibly tighter and Principal Martinez personally greeted them at the door, Ryan returned to Nexus to find chaos. The Wall Street Journal had broken a story. Aviation Revolution. How one near disaster is transforming air safety. The article was positive, glowing even, but it had triggered something. Ryan's phone exploded with calls from reporters, other airlines, investment firms. The safety system had moved from corporate secret to public phenomenon. This is good, Jennifer from PR insisted, fielding calls with both hands. This kind of attention drives adoption. Delta's already calling. But Alexandra looked troubled. She pulled Ryan into her office and closed the door. Richardson's going nuclear, she said, showing him her phone. He's calling for an SEC investigation into Nexus, claiming we're manipulating data to inflate our stock price. That's insane. That's desperation. Our success means his failure. Men like him don't accept failure. She moved to her window. The city spread below them in morning light. Ryan, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Okay. If this gets worse, if Richardson makes things truly difficult for Emma, would you walk away? From the job, from the project, from... She gestured vaguely between them. From all of it? Ryan didn't hesitate. To protect Emma? Yes. Alexandra nodded, her expression unreadable. That's what I thought. And that's why you're a good father. She turned to face him. But I'm not going to let it come to that. Richardson wants a war? Fine. But he's about to learn what happens when you attack someone I care about. The possessiveness in her voice, the way she said care about, made something shift in the room's atmosphere. Alexandra, the American Airlines meeting, she interrupted, businesslike again. We need to refocus. They're sending their entire safety board. This is our chance to checkmate Richardson completely. The next 2 days blurred together in preparation. Ryan barely saw Emma, relying on Mrs. Patterson more than he liked, but the American meeting could change everything. If they signed on, with United already committed, the industry would have no choice but to follow. Thursday arrived gray and cold. Ryan dressed carefully, aware that Americans' executives were more conservative than United's, more likely to be influenced by Richardson's whispers. Alexandra met him in the lobby, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's cars, her armor polished to perfection. Ready? Always. But as they entered the conference room, Ryan's heart sank. Richard Richardson was sitting with the American executives, smiling like a shark. Mr. Cooper, Richardson said pleasantly. Ms. Steele, I hope you don't mind. As a significant shareholder, I thought I should observe this presentation. Alexandra's expression could have frozen hell. Mr. Richardson, how unexpected. Oh, I'm full of surprises. He turned to the American executives. Gentlemen, I've been doing some research into Nexus's claims. Very interesting findings. The lead executive, a stern man named Williams, frowned. Mr. Richardson expressed some concerns about data integrity. We'd like those addressed before we proceed. Alexandra stepped forward, every inch the CEO. We're happy to address any concerns. Our data is completely transparent and verifiable. Is it? Richardson pulled out a tablet. Because I've found some interesting discrepancies. For instance, the algorithm that predicted United's engine failure. It seems to have been remarkably specific, almost as if it had inside information. That's because it analyzed 15 years of maintenance data, Ryan interjected. The patterns were always there, we just found a way to see them. Or you had access to information you shouldn't have. Corporate espionage, perhaps? The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. That's a serious allegation, Richardson, Alexandra said, her voice deadly quiet. I'm just asking questions. For instance, isn't it convenient that Mr. Cooper here, a man with no background in aviation safety, suddenly develops revolutionary predictive technology right after a dramatic rescue that made headlines? Ryan felt rage building in his chest, but before he could respond, Alexandra laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. You're right, Richardson. It is convenient. Convenient that Ryan's expertise in supply chain optimization translates perfectly to aviation safety. Convenient that his patents in predictive modeling apply to aircraft maintenance. Convenient that someone with actual experience in crisis management is leading this initiative instead of another MBA who's never seen the inside of a burning plane. She turned to the American executives. Gentlemen, Mr. Richardson is here because our system threatens his investments in outdated maintenance companies. He's watching his portfolio tank as airlines realize they can prevent disasters instead of just insuring against them. This isn't about data integrity. It's about a desperate man trying to protect his wealth at the expense of passenger safety. Williams looked between them, clearly uncomfortable. These are serious accusations from both sides. Then let's settle it with facts, Ryan said, pulling up his laptop. This is real-time data from United's fleet. 17 potential issues identified in the last 72 hours. 14 confirmed and corrected. 3 still under investigation. Each prevented incident represents hundreds of lives. He pulled up another screen. This is the traditional maintenance schedule. Those same issues wouldn't have been caught for an average of 6 weeks. 6 weeks of flying with hidden dangers. Anyone can manipulate data, Richardson started. Then let's use yours. Alexandra pulled up her phone. Richardson Industries owns Fletcher Maintenance Solutions. According to your own subsidiary's records, you've had 43 unexpected failures in the last year that resulted in emergency landings. Our system would have predicted 38 of them. Richardson's face was turning red. You accessed private corporate data? It's in your public SEC filings. Page 247 of your last annual report, buried in the risk assessments. Did you think no one would read that far? The American executives were exchanging glances, clearly reassessing the situation. Williams cleared his throat. Mr. Richardson, perhaps you should recuse yourself from this discussion. This is a setup, Richardson snarled. They're manipulating all of you. The only manipulation here, Alexandra said quietly, is a man using his 7-year-old daughter to attack another child because her father threatens his bottom line. Richardson stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You'll regret this, both of you. I already regret having to waste time on your pathetic fears when we could be saving lives, Alexandra replied. Richardson stormed out, the door slamming behind him. The room was silent for a moment. Then Williams spoke. Ms. Steele, Mr. Cooper, I apologize for that disruption. Now, can you show us how this system actually works? The next 3 hours were a masterclass in technical presentation and persuasion. Without Richardson's toxic presence, the American executives asked real questions, raised legitimate concerns, and gradually became believers. By the time they broke for lunch, Ryan could see it in their eyes. They were in. We'll need board approval, Williams said as they prepared to leave. But I can tell you unofficially, we want this. The liability reduction alone makes it worthwhile, and the moral imperative, he looked at Ryan, you really walked through fire to save her? Anyone would have, no, Williams interrupted. They wouldn't. I've been in this industry 40 years. I've seen how people react in crisis. What you did was extraordinary. And if this system can help ordinary people make extraordinary decisions when seconds count, then we need it. After they left, Alexandra and Ryan sat alone in the conference room, the weight of victory mixing with exhaustion. We did it, Alexandra said quietly. Americans in. With United, that's 60% of domestic air traffic. Richardson's not going to stop. No, but he's lost his leverage. The airlines won't listen to him anymore, not after that display. She paused. I'm worried about what he'll do next. Men like him, when they're cornered. Ryan's phone buzzed. Emma's school. His blood went cold. Mr. Cooper, Emma's fine, Principal Martinez said immediately. But there's been an incident. Mr. Richardson arrived demanding to remove his daughter and made some very public, very inappropriate statements about your family. Security had to escort him out. We'll be right there. They found Emma in the library with Mrs. Chen, the librarian, reading about pterodactyls as if nothing had happened. But Ryan could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she gripped the book too tightly. Hey, baby, he said softly. Emma looked up, and he saw she'd been crying. Melody's dad yelled at Principal Martinez. He said terrible things about you and Ms. Alexandra. Everyone heard. Alexandra knelt beside her. I'm sorry that happened, Emma. Adult problems should never affect children. Melody was crying, Emma continued. Her dad pulled her out of school. She didn't even get to say goodbye. Ryan felt a pang of sympathy for Melody Richardson, another child paying for her parents' choices. Principal Martinez appeared in the doorway. Mr. Cooper, Ms. Steele, could I speak with you privately? In her office, the principal looked tired. Mr. Richardson has withdrawn Melody from the school and filed a formal complaint with the State Board of Education. He's alleging that Nexus Technologies is using financial influence to create an unsafe environment for other students. That's ridiculous, Alexandra said. Of course it is. But he's also threatening to sue the school for allowing inappropriate individuals access to students. He means you, Ms. Steele. Alexandra's expression hardened. He wants to play legal games? Fine. Principal Martinez, Nexus Technologies would like to formally donate $5 million to establish a comprehensive STEM program at Ridgemont Elementary. Full computer lab, robotics program, and a paleontology wing in honor of Emma Cooper's contributions to classroom science discussions. The principal's eyes widened. Furthermore, Alexandra continued, my legal team will provide pro bono representation against any frivolous lawsuits Mr. Richardson might file. And if he continues to harass this institution or any of its students, I will personally ensure he spends the next decade in courtrooms defending himself against charges that will make his head spin. Ms. Steele, that's incredibly generous, but It's not generous. It's necessary. Children deserve safe spaces to learn, free from adult vendettas. That evening, Ryan tucked Emma into bed, her dinosaur nightlight casting prehistoric shadows on the walls. Daddy, why does Melody's dad hate us so much? Ryan sat on the edge of her bed, choosing his words carefully. He doesn't hate us, Em. He's afraid. When people feel like they're losing control, sometimes they lash out. Like when Tommy Brooks pushed me because I knew more dinosaur names than him? Exactly like that. Emma was quiet for a moment. I feel bad for Melody. Me too. Maybe when her dad calms down, we can be friends again? Maybe. But Ryan doubted it. Some bridges, once burned, stayed ash. After Emma was asleep, he found Alexandra still in his living room, working on her laptop, having stayed without being asked. You don't have to be here, he said. Yes, I do. She closed the laptop. Richardson crossed a line today. He went after Emma directly. That makes this personal. It was already personal. No, before it was business with personal elements. Now, she stood, pacing to the window. Ryan, I need to tell you something. Okay. I've been very careful since the plane to maintain boundaries, to keep things professional despite what I feel, because Emma needs stability, and you need this job, and the work we're doing matters too much to complicate with personal feelings. Ryan's heart was pounding. Alexandra, but watching Richardson attack Emma, I realized something. I'm not protecting you by staying distant. I'm leaving you vulnerable. Because if we were actually together, if we were a real family unit, he'd have no ammunition. The speculation would be moot. Are you suggesting we fake a relationship to defeat Richardson? She turned to face him, and he saw vulnerability he'd never seen before. No. I'm suggesting we stop pretending there isn't already a relationship. The air between them crackled with possibility and danger. Emma, Ryan started, adores me, calls me Aunt Alex when she thinks I'm not listening, draws pictures of the three of us as a Stegosaurus family. The company is mine. The board trusts my judgment. The media will say what they always say, but they'll move on to the next scandal within a week. Ryan stood, crossing to her, close enough to see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. And us? Us is the only question that matters. Not Richardson, not the media, not anyone else. Just us. And Emma. I haven't... since Sarah. I know. Her hand found his, their fingers interlacing with surprising ease. I'm not asking you to forget her or replace her. I'm asking if maybe, possibly, you could imagine building something new, something different but equally real. Ryan thought about the last months, the fire, the rescue, the job, the battles with Richardson, the quiet moments watching Alexandra teach Emma about coding the way she'd defended them with fierce loyalty. Somewhere between the crisis and now, she'd become essential to their lives. This could complicate everything, he said. Everything's already complicated. At least this would be complicated with purpose. If it goes wrong, then we'll handle it like adults who care about each other and about Emma. But Ryan, what if it goes right? He looked at her, this brilliant, complicated woman who'd crashed into their lives in flames and stayed to help rebuild from ashes. You know Emma already considers you family. And you? Instead of answering with words, Ryan kissed her. It was awkward at first, two people out of practice with vulnerability, but then something clicked, and it felt like coming home after a long, difficult journey. When they pulled apart, Alexandra was smiling in a way he'd never seen before, young and uncertain and hopeful. So, she said, what do we tell Emma? The truth, that adults are complicated, but we're trying our best. Think she'll approve? From upstairs, a small voice called out, Finally, Mrs. Patterson owes me $5. They looked at each other and burst out laughing, the tension of months dissolving into something lighter, warmer, more sustainable. She bet on us? Alexandra asked, incredulous. Apparently everyone did, Ryan replied, remembering the knowing looks from his team, from Mrs. Patterson, from Principal Martinez. Alexandra pulled him close again. Richardson's going to lose his mind. Let him. I'm done organizing my life around his tantrums. The media will have a field day for about 5 minutes until the next scandal. Your work will continue to save lives, regardless of my personal relationships. She smiled against his shoulder. When did you become the optimist? When you became the worrier. They stood there in the darkness of his living room, snow beginning to fall again outside, the future uncertain but no longer impossible. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Richardson's inevitable escalation, media scrutiny, the complex work of blending lives that had operated independently for so long. But tonight, Emma was safe upstairs, already incorporating this development into her dinosaur family drawings. The aviation safety system was spreading across the industry, saving lives they'd never know about. And two people who'd met in fire had finally stopped pretending they weren't already building something worth protecting. Richardson had been wrong about one thing. This hadn't been planned or orchestrated. It had grown organically from crisis, nurtured by shared purpose, and strengthened by mutual protection. It was messy and complicated and absolutely real. From upstairs, Emma called out again, "Does this mean Ms. Alexandra can come to my school science fair?" "As what?" Alexandra called back. "As my dad's girlfriend, obviously. Melody Richardson's mom came as her dad's third wife. This is way better." Ryan and Alexandra looked at each other, seeing their future reflected in a 7-year-old's matter-of-fact acceptance. "Out of the mouths of babes," Alexandra murmured. "She's not wrong, though. This is better." "Better than what?" "Than being afraid. Than letting Richardson or anyone else dictate our choices. Than pretending we haven't already become a family." Alexandra kissed him again, and this time it felt like a promise. A beginning, a door opening to possibilities that had nothing to do with corporate success or public perception, and everything to do with three people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way. Outside, Denver slept under its blanket of snow. The mountains stood eternal guard. And in a house in Ridgemont Circle, a new kind of family was taking shape. Unconventional, unexpected, but absolutely unapologetic about its existence. The hero's story, Ryan realized, wasn't just about the rescue. It wasn't even about